Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. Day last. Before we get started here, I'm going to turn to the Executive Director Burton for an update on the day's events. So, Eric?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, council members and everyone. We are on day last here. We've got a few agenda items that we had originally scheduled for today that we've already dispensed with. We have shuffled things around a little bit, and so just in the interest of everyone's clarity, we'll start off this morning with H3, which is future council meeting agenda and workload planning. I'm told Salmon is still doing some last-minute negotiating, so we'll give Salmon some time and take them up late morning. And my best estimate is that'll get us through the day. We may end around a late lunchtime today. So I believe that Chairman and I are also planning to have you all break for a few minutes in between so that everyone can pack up their hotel rooms if necessary. We'll do that late this morning. So that's the outlook for the day. Happy to answer any other questions, but I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Questions on that overview? All right. With that, we'll go to the gap report. I did. Okay, I'm sorry. My bad. But that was it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I'll start us off with agenda item H3. This is future council meeting agenda and workload planning. This agenda item is intended to refine general planning for future PFMC meetings with a focus on finalizing the proposed agendas for June and September. Those meetings are in Rohnert Park, California, and Spokane, Washington, respectively. There are a couple of attachments. In your advanced briefing book, you had a preliminary year at a glance document. You also had two quick reference agendas, one for June and the other for September. So what we'll do here is we'll talk through these documents and I'll assist you all in reviewing them and proposing agenda topics and their schedule over the course of the year and over the next two council meetings. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions about the overview. Otherwise, I'll walk you through some of the more recent supplemental materials on the quick reference agenda and the year at a glance.
Okay. Kelly?
Thanks. I just wanted to highlight you all should be referencing the revised documents. So if you picked up paper copies last night, just make sure you're looking at the ones on your table this morning. Online documents have also been updated. Thank you.
Okay. Questions from Eric? Okay, I think you're good.
Okay, I'll start off with the year at a glance summary, and I'll just highlight some of the changes that have been made since the advanced briefing book. As Kelly noted, we do have a revised supplemental attachment 4, which is what I'll be looking at first. And so if you're looking at that document, looking at the June column in particular, a couple of things that have been changed. One is under groundfish, gear switching implementation clarifications. We no longer think that's necessary. As we've been looking at the package of materials regarding the drafting of regulations, we don't think that there's a need for clarification from the council, so that's been stricken. Also stricken from June, but moved over to September is Initiative 4, our groundfish risk tables. And let's see, if we then look over at September, we've struck the take reduction team because we don't expect that to come up in September. We have moved that over to November. As you go down September in groundfish, you see that the groundfish risk table matter has been moved from June over to September. Moving further down that column, the two salmon work groups have been unshaded. So we do expect some work to be done on those between now and September. Moving over to November, under CPS, we've added sardine stock structure and management, and that's the result of decisions you took yesterday. You'll note that under groundfish, the take reduction team has been moved to November, the update there. We have unshaded the trawl catch share program review document. We expect the work that is underway right now to be finalized by the November meeting. And then if you go over to the March column, a couple of things to flag for you. One is toward the bottom, the cross FMP matters. We have the socioeconomic framework methodology. We expect that to come back in March. And then the Coast Guard annual report has been moved from March over to April. Then finally, if you go down the April column, the change there is the addition of the Salmon EFH Phase 1 report. That is essentially the synthesis of the call for information that we discussed a couple of days ago. So those are the changes on the year at a glance. Let's see, I'll turn now to the June quick reference agenda and highlight changes for you that have occurred there. So once again, as Kelly indicated, we have revised supplemental attachments. This one is revised supplemental attachment 5. So the major things I'll flag for you here that are new, starting with the Friday column. We have initiative for risk tables. That's been stricken, as I mentioned already on the year at a glance summary. If you look at Saturday, you'll see that stock definitions has been added to Saturday. We've now made that a 2-part agenda item. So it's also, you'll see that it's on the Monday as well. In season has been moved to Saturday, and we've stricken gear switching from the agenda. Sunday, you'll note that groundfish in season has been stricken from Sunday. Monday, once again, the stock definitions, the second part of that comes back on Monday. And then we've unshaded the harvest specifications flexibility scoping matter, which had been shaded on your advanced briefing book copy. And then if you go down to the bottom, we do have the GAP and GMT. We've stricken their Sunday meeting. So they'll be meeting Wednesday through Saturday. Let's see, and then highlighting the changes on the September meeting. Let's see, actually, I will. Let me see here. Going down the Friday column, you'll note that under groundfish, we have initiative for risk tables on Friday. If you go over to Saturday, we do have, let's see, we've added C5, which is the stock assessment methodology topic. That's been moved over from Friday. Sunday, once again, the take reduction team no longer scheduled, the update no longer scheduled for Saturday. I'm sorry, September. We have phase 2 stock definitions. And then let's see, moving over to Monday. Pausing here to make sure I didn't miss something. We do have the 2 salmon work groups are unshaded. That's the change. And then Tuesday looks the same. I believe that's all the updates I'll flag for you here on the difference between the advanced briefing book copy and the revised supplemental copies that we provide to you. It's a normal course as we go throughout the week. So happy to take any questions on that overview, Mr. Chairman. Otherwise, I'd suggest we go to the advisory body reports.
All right, questions on the overview? Corey Niles.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Merrick, for that overview, and to you and Kelly again for all the prep work on this. May I just ask a question that maybe think about for council discussion, but your mention of the gear switching regulations reminded me back to the informational report 4 and the guidance we got on the unleashing prosperity through deregulation. So I'm kind of what is the effect? I know we just got a new head of NIMS announced yesterday, but the question in the back of my mind is what is the effect of putting that rule through the system now based on this new guidance, and is it covered by this guidance? And I forgot I had this question in the beginning of the week, and that maybe not expecting them to necessarily have an answer at this point, but I do think we should be cognizant of what the fallout from that new executive order, if any, would be.
Director Burton.
Appreciate the question, Mr. Niles. I don't have an answer to that. I think Mr. Wolf might be in a better position to answer any questions about the new executive order.
Right.
Yeah, and Corey, sorry if I missed the start of your question. Are you specifically referencing the deregulatory one, the 10-to-1 executive order? Okay. Yeah, we do have new guidance from the Office of Management and Budget. I believe actually, and Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an informational report, right? Yeah, thank you. In the briefing book, so you can take a look at that. We just got that just right before this meeting, pretty much. And there is still some details that need to be worked out between headquarters and, of course, leadership in this administration of how we're going to implement it. I definitely expect to have much more. In fact, I think there's a whole agenda item on this at the CCC in May. This will be discussed thoroughly there. And so between that and the upcoming June council meeting, I think we'll have a little bit more of an understanding of the implications where it could help guide, for example, this process here. But unfortunately, I don't have more than that at this meeting. Thanks.
Chair Kiefer. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did take a glance at that agenda item. I appreciate that that was included and did notice that hunting and fishing regulations are exempted.
Right.
Yeah, and just to make sense, right? I mean, it's clear that currently, our general process of routine measures and specifications and stuff are not considered regulatory or deregulatory. It's the question of new actions and things like that. And that's what we're looking for additional guidance on. And I think we'll be able to give the council that both through the CCC report and from NIMFS at the June meeting.
Thank you, Ryan. Marcy Urubko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a different question on the same topic. The item that it's now showing as proposed for removal on the June agenda, the title is Gear Switching Implementation Clarifications. I'm wondering what was initially envisioned in this agenda item, and is the determination that the agenda item is now no longer necessary, or we're just reshaping it? What was the goal of the agenda item in the first place?
Dr. Burton.
Yeah, thank you. So where this agenda item came from is, I think, starts with the process of deeming regulations. When NIMS drafts regulations in response to council action, they will then send a draft back to me, and I work with my staff to deem them as consistent with the council intent and direction. When it comes to really complicated things, sometimes there's a need to come back to the council and say, what was your intent here? And this was a very complicated action. But as we've been going through the regulations, we're confident that that need to come back to the council doesn't actually exist here, which is a nice surprise. So we have gone ahead and stricken it. I will say if we do get to a point where we need to bring it back to you, we'll put it on the agenda, but we don't see that at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Anyone else? Corey Ridings.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at the year at a glance, looking at Salmon in April 2026, and noticing that's where the EFH Phase 1 report is situated. We had a good conversation when we talked about that earlier in the week. I'm wondering if I could get a little more information about the timing on that, and so why it's a year out.
Dr. Bird.
I might look at Kelly and see if she has more insight on this one than I do.
Kelly?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Pettinger, Ms. Ridings. So, the action here at this meeting was to proceed with the data call. And we would go through the data call, summarize the information that came in through that data call, and then bring it forward for council consideration as to whether to embark upon Phase 2. The choice of April specifically was to provide sufficient time, giving some staffing uncertainties about what it will take to bring forward that report. Additionally, March tends to be a heavier meeting with regard to kicking off the salmon process. So there was some thought too that in April there might be greater capacity from the STT and SAS to kind of hone in on this item.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. Thanks, Corey. Okay. Anyone else? Marcy?
Different question, but also on salmon, if I may. I'm looking at the preliminary year at a glance for November, as well as September. I'm looking at the salmon items. I see quite a lot for September that also is reflected on the revised supplemental attachment 6. We're up to 5 salmon items. I'm looking on the back of the year at a glance and the nifty new chart of AB meeting schedules. And I see that the SAS and STT are not meeting in June and are remote in September. And just noting with 5 hefty agenda items, what the thinking was there.
Dr. Burton?
Thank you. Yeah, starting from the top, we have been scheduling more remote meetings than we had been throughout this council's history, and that is driven largely by budget need. We also, when we think about the need for in-person versus remote meeting, what we often think about is the level of interaction needed or iteration that's needed between the council and advisory bodies. And so as we think about salmon in March and April, there's a lot of iteration and back and forth, and that's best done in person. If we have items where that iteration isn't necessary and there's a report followed by a decision, we don't see the need for being in person as high. And so we'll often schedule those meetings as remote. That gives us some flexibility and helps to free up some of our resources.
Thanks, Marcy. Rebecca Lett.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning. I'm just looking at the June meeting and looking across at the year at a glance. Under highly migratory species, item D on Saturday, there is an item 4, which is the HMS Roadmap Development Report. I think the HMSA has discussed this in their meeting. I was just an observer, but I think the understanding is that the FIW report out would be under that item 4. That would include the roadmap as well as the EFP and other charges that the council has given to the FIW. Thank you.
Dr. Burton?
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Lent, we are on the same page there. I view that as a fishery innovation work group item, and that they would be substantially involved in that agenda item. Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anyone else? Corey Ridings.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at the year at a glance again. April 2026, the Cross FMP, and looking at the U.S. Coast Guard annual report. Someone please correct my memory if I'm wrong, but I think we talked about this briefly under the efficiencies agenda item earlier in the week regarding potentially moving that to informational. Do I have that right? And just looking for a little, if I do have that right, sort of what was the decision to keep it on the agenda and as opposed to moving it to informational?
Dr. Bird?
Thank you. Yeah, we did pose that question to you all, and I have to admit I don't remember exactly what we decided, so I'll look over at Kelly and see if she has better clarity.
Kelly Ames.
Thanks, Director Bird and Ms. Ridings. You are accurately remembering that conversation. I did not update the workload planning documents because I hadn't had the opportunity to talk with the Coast Guard and just ensure that they didn't have anything beyond a normal update to provide to the council. And I will use that similar approach for the IPHC agenda items, which you will see are still on our year at a glance. So just wanting to make that confirmation before we completely remove those items.
Thank you, Kelly. And I think sometimes the commander sometimes will come and give a presentation and talk. So, but yes, Chris, German.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and for that, if you look back to that, the EC report for C5, I think if we go with that recommendation, we can actually move the tri-state report from November, tie that in with the Coast Guard report, because our recommendation there was to do a consolidated report where you have the opportunity to hear from the district commander. That's why we moved it to Portland, since it's the District 13 commander who has Washington, Oregon. If we can keep that in Washington, Oregon, that makes his travel much better and gives you the opportunity to talk to, our leadership, and our district commanders rotate out every couple years. So when he moves, or she moves, our next district commander, when she moves up into DC, it takes specific fisheries with her into DC and keeps fisheries in Coast Guard headquarters there as well as safety pieces. So you have that opportunity to hear from our district commander, and then we'll also have, the other 3 states and NOAA enforcement up at the table. And the idea is that we, just like on the water, we work together out on the water. So you'd see the same thing here, where we would do a consolidated, shorter report. You'd have a little bit longer report as an informational. We do a little bit shorter, and then Q&A, and keep that to an hour with all 5 of us. So I think we could move Tri-State over with the Coast Guard annual report in April, and we would really prefer to keep that on the agenda to keep get the boss in here, for an hour once a year, just to get some face time with you all.
Great. Thanks, Chris, for that update. Okay, good. All right. Anyone else? All right. Not seeing any hands. So with that, we'll go to the reports, and we'll take the GAP report first. Susan, are you there?
Yes. Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Pettinger, and good morning, council members. My name is Susan Chambers, and I will be reading the Groundfish Advisory Panel report on future council meeting agenda and workload planning. Referencing the proposed June quick reference agenda, the GAP recommends unshading and scheduling C9, harvest specifications flexibility scoping. The GAP recommended scoping several pathways toward the harvest specifications flexibility, or in other words, specs flex, in our agenda item HAA, Supplemental GAP Report 1, March 2025. As a point of clarification, that list was not meant to be exhaustive, but rather put some possible solutions on the table. These ideas could bring major benefits to the groundfish fishery, as you guys have heard from public comments and other GAP reports, which could also bring more additional management flexibility and stability to the council by establishing responsive tools that could be used in both short and long-term scenarios, and reducing overall workload for council and National Marine Fisheries Service staff and other management entities. And I will note that, this is unshaded for the June agenda now in the supplemental report. So thank you very much. The GAP appreciates that. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Questions of the GAP report? I'm not seeing any hands. All right, Susan, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See, next up we have the HMS management team, and that'd be Alan Sarich. Alan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
All right. Welcome.
All right. So the HMSMT requests to remotely in June if the NIMP staff are unable to attend the June meeting in person. NIMP staff comprise half of the HMSMT, so meeting in person would require a hybrid option, which makes it a little more difficult to complete work. If the HMSAS meets in person as requested, it would be necessary to have a hybrid option in the AS meeting already for joint sessions, regardless of whether the MT meeting is hybrid or remote. And after reviewing the year at a glance, the HMSMT also suggests that council consider whether it is necessary to have a 2-meeting process for approval of some EFPs during 2025. If applications received are for approaches previously considered by the council but postponed, such as fishing with more than 10 pieces of deep set buoy gear, 2 meetings may not be necessary as long as all required information is included in the application. In order to expedite the EFP approval process while the FIW develops the EFP framework, the council may find it beneficial to allow itself the flexibility to approve EFP applications in a single meeting in June. That's the end of our report.
All right. Thanks, Alan. Questions on the management team report? I'm not seeing hands, Alan. So, all right, thank you. Next up will be the SSC report and Dr. Jason Schaffler. Welcome back, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. I am Jason Schaffler, and I will be reading agenda item H3A, Supplemental SSC Report 1, Scientific and Statistical Committee Report on Future Council Meeting Agenda and Workload Planning. The Scientific and Statistical Committee discussed workload planning and has the following updates to its March 2025 statement under this agenda item. Stock Assessment Review, STAR Panel 1, will cover the yellowtail rockfish north of 4010 north latitude benchmark assessment on May 19 through 23rd, 2025 in Seattle, Washington. The meeting will be conducted in person and broadcast for listening and remote public comment. The schedule will be for a full day on Monday and half days thereafter. The STAR panel will be John Budrick, SSC, is chair, one Center for Independent Experts reviewer, Tommy Moore, member of the SSC, and potentially one additional reviewer with knowledge of West Coast groundfish stock assessments. Representatives from the Groundfish Management Team and Groundfish Advisory Subpanel are requested. The SSC Groundfish Subcommittee should meet in person in Rohnert Park, California to review update stock assessments for widow rockfish and yellow eye rockfish at 9 a.m. on June 11th, 2025, the day prior to the full SSC at the June 2025 council meeting. The meeting will be conducted in person and broadcast for listening and remote public comment. The representatives from the GMT and GAP are requested. The SSC Groundfish Subcommittee may also discuss topics in preparation for the upcoming biennial harvest specifications. The SSC notes that that Salmon Council Operating Procedure 15 edits are shaded for the September 2025 year at a glance and could be completed should the council request. The SSC encourages dialogue between council staff and members of the SSC Salmon Subcommittee during document preparation in advance of this agenda item. STAR Panel 2 will cover benchmark assessments for chili pepper rockfish and California quillback rockfish in June 23rd through 27th, 2025 in Santa Cruz, California. The meeting will be conducted in person and broadcast for listening and remote public comment. The STAR panel will be Cheryl Barnes as chair and member of the SSC, 2 CIE reviewers, 1 additional reviewer with knowledge of West Coast groundfish assessments, and representatives from the GMT and GAP are requested. STAR Panel 3 will cover rough-eye black-spotted rockfish and stablefish on July 14 through 18, 2025 in Seattle, Washington. The meeting will be conducted in person and broadcast for listening and remote public comment. The STAR panel will be John Field as chair and member of the SSC, 2 CIE reviewers, and Chris Free, also with the SSC. Representatives from the GMT and GAP are requested. The SSC Economic Subcommittee proposes conducting a review of the Trawl Catch Share Program review in advance of the September 2025 council meeting so that feedback from the SSC Economic Subcommittee and the SSC can be addressed prior to final action scheduled in November. This review could occur as a virtual meeting in late August or early September 2025. The SSC Groundfish Subcommittee should meet to review stock assessments, catch-only projections, rebuilding analyses if needed, and to prepare harvest specifications before the September 2025 council meeting. The SSC suggests a 1.5 or 2-day virtual meeting on August 12th through 13th, 2025. If further review and discussion of groundfish stock assessments not recommended by STAR panels and rebuilding analyses, if needed, is warranted, the SSC Groundfish Subcommittee meeting, commonly referred to as a mop-up, is anticipated during the week of September 29 through October 3rd, 2025. Depending upon the degree of complexity of any review materials, this meeting could be in person and broadcast for listening and remote public comment. The SSC proposes the SSC Salmon Subcommittee hold a salmon methodology review with participation from the Salmon Technical Team and any other appropriate advisory bodies or subcommittees in the first full week of October 2025, pending proposal and selection of final topics and completion of materials at a time and place to be determined. The Salmon Subcommittee requests that if the meeting will take more than one day, it be scheduled as one full day and one partial day rather than two partial days. The SSC Ecosystem Subcommittee anticipates conducting its annual review of ecosystem status report science topics in fall of 2025 as a virtual meeting based on the proposals put forward by the California Current Integrated Ecosystem Assessment Team at the March 2025 council meeting. The SSC proposes the Coastal Pelagic Species Subcommittee conduct a review of the new Southwest Fisheries Science Center, Northwest Fisheries Science Center integrated survey in early 2026 to identify any issues or additional analyses to be conducted prior to use of the results from the survey NCPS stock assessments. The SSC has noted that the publication of pre-season report 1 occurs within a few days of the March SSC meeting, and this can limit comprehensive and careful review by all members. The SSC reiterates that it or the SSC Salmon Subcommittee could give a comprehensive review of pre-season report 1 between April and November, and both the SSC or SSC Salmon Subcommittee and STT might jointly or separately review what material could be removed to ease workload while still delivering necessary information. The SSC has previously raised concerns with preparing statements for the council on the first day of a meeting due to the need to provide clear, complete, and accurate scientific advice. The June 2025 quick reference agenda has 2 groundfish items, a dock stock assessments for 2027-2028, and Initiative 4 risk tables, noting that this has been since moved, which may require SSC input on the first day of the council meeting. This would require an SSC member to miss some portion of the last day of the SSC meeting, where much of the statement writing and review takes place, limiting their input on critical issues. And that concludes the SSC statement. I would be happy to answer any questions should they arise.
All right, questions for Dr. Schaffler on the SSC report? Rebecca Lett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Schaffler, for this. That's a lot of work. And, we're very appreciative of everything that you do. Just a quick question, and you can redirect me to some of your members of the Economic Subcommittee. I'm just curious about subcommittees conducting a review of the trawl catch share program review. Would this entail looking at the public comments that will be received in the 3 hearings, or I guess the 4 hearings, and then responding to that with some analyses, or is there already an outline of that work? And I'm happy to reach out to your subcommittee if that's easier. Thank you, Dr. Schaffler.
Thank you, Dr. Lent. So the way this meeting that has been discussed was that there would be some material and some type of framework brought to the SSC Economic Subcommittee, and they would guide that review team for any additional analyses, which presumably the review team would be bringing that public comment forward. So that is our perspective on that.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Anyone else? Corey Niles. Oh, Corey Writings. Pick a Corey.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Corey. Dr. Schaffler, thanks for that report. My question pertains to sort of the last part of the report, where it's noted the SSC has previously raised concerns with preparing statements for the council on the first day of the meeting due to the need to provide clear, complete, accurate scientific advice. Clearly, that's a goal of the council and wants the SSC to be able to do all those things. Did the SSC discuss sort of ways to solve that problem, or things that the council could do regarding timing of SSC meetings to help alleviate that problem?
Thank you, Ms. Ridings. Yes, the SSC has discussed this at a couple of meetings, and our meetings could be pushed a little bit earlier. We recognize that then requires other advisory bodies to be pushed earlier, so there's limited scope for that. That also gets into the timing of when review material is available. The other solution we've talked about is, and there is a recognition that the council is operating under a compressed timeline, but moving some of those items back, particularly the more complex items that the SSC would be asked to comment on, to slightly later in the meeting. So there are potential agenda items, and we've had those discussions with both Merrick and Kelly during our executive director's report and meetings.
Thanks, Corey. All right, Corey Niles.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, like Becca said, lots of stuff here. My question's about the star panels and your statements about potentially one additional reviewer with the knowledge of West Coast groundfish stock assessments. I've say that in a couple places, and I'm saying I'm hoping that yes, there was going to be another reviewer on both those panels with the stock assessment expertise. But what's the challenge there, and what is the uncertainty in getting another participant on both those panels where you mentioned that?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Niles. For the second panel in Santa Cruz, we've already identified an additional reviewer, a retired NIMS reviewer. That is I think he's already accepted. The question is for that first star panel, which is just yellowtail rockfish. The reviewer that had been previously identified was with the Alaska Science Center in Alaska, and we're not certain that there's going to be ability for them to travel. So that we're currently the Northwest Science Center is currently talking to the Alaska Science Center local team there in Seattle to get a reviewer from the Alaska Science Center. We would note that this is only a single species from a single area, which the other assessments all have 2 species in them. So that fourth reviewer, we will have a CIE reviewer. So that fourth reviewer may not be necessary, and that we do have flexibility under the TOR that if a fourth reviewer is not available, that it does allow for that. So the first stuff is we are trying to identify a reviewer from the Alaska Science Center. If that is not possible, we do plan on going ahead with this star panel with 3 reviewers.
Great.
Okay, both Dr. Moore and Dr. Budrick are highly valued colleagues of mine I've worked with for years, but neither have their PhDs in stock assessment was the thought. So, but yeah, I'll leave some other thoughts for council discussion.
Right. Anyone else? I'm not seeing hands. Thanks, Jason. All right. Next up will be Mark Fina and the CPS Advisory Subpanel. Mark, are you online?
Yes. Good morning. This is Mark Fina from the CPSAS. We just had a short comment that we asked that you schedule for November a sardine management agenda item. And we hope that you'll look at developing a purpose and need statement and a range of alternatives for managing all of the sardines off the West Coast, the issue that we talked a lot about this meeting. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Questions for Mark on the advisory subpanel report? Okay. Not seeing any. Thank you, Mark. And,
Thank you.
You bet. Last is the CPS management team and Nick Wagner. Nick.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. Hello. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Nick Wagner from the CPSMT, and I will be reading our team report on future meeting agenda and workload planning. The CPSMT is currently scheduled to attend the November 2025 council meeting remotely. We recommend that council schedule a Pacific sardine stock structure agenda item for the November meeting and request to be in person. The exempted fishing permit preliminary review agenda item for November 2025 is currently shaded. The CPSMT suggests this item be removed from the agenda as no new EFPs are expected. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nick. Questions for Nick on the management team report? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. And then the last will be the GMT report and Will Jasper. Will.
Good morning, Chair Pettinger. Can you hear me all right this morning?
We can. Good morning.
Excellent. So, good morning, Chair Pettinger and members of the council. My name is Will Jasper, and I will be reading the GMT report on agenda item H3. I will actually be summarizing the first half of this report and then fully reading the last paragraph, as the first two paragraphs primarily relate to agenda item changes in June, which the council has already taken. Those agenda items are C9, C6, and C7, and the recommendations we made were the recommendations you have already implemented. So thank you for that. In full reading, third paragraph, assuming item C6, gear switching implementation clarifications, is removed, and C4, agenda item initiative for risk tables, is unshaded. The GMT notes that up to 10 agenda items, though this is now 9 with changes, currently on the June agenda would warrant comments from the team, depending on the information in the briefing book and subsequent team discussion. If the council wishes the GMT to consider commenting on all of these items, the team would need a multi-day pre-meeting webinar to ensure the team has sufficient time to review, discuss, and draft reports. A 2-day pre-meeting webinar in May following Yellowtail Star Panel would be ideal. Otherwise, the council or the team requests council guidance on which item in the June agenda to prioritize for consideration and discussion. Either way, the GMT expects to work with council staff regarding which agenda items might be best suited for our webinar in an effort to optimize efficiency. And with that, I will take any questions.
All right. Thanks, Will. Questions on the GMT report? Asia Shumilo.
Thank you, Chair Pettinger. And thank you for reading the report. I'm curious, too, if you guys discussed any prioritization that you guys see across this set of 9 items. I acknowledge, too, that it is a lot of items. So did you guys talk about any clear priority here?
Through the chair, yes. Thank you, Asia. We did, but we did not have time or resources available to come to any kind of consensus at this point. Without further guidance from the council, Chair Roberts and myself, along with council staffer Todd Phillips, would probably do a preliminary overview of the briefing book materials once the advanced briefing book deadline is passed, and then prioritize from there.
Great. Thank you, Asia. Anyone else? All right, well, I don't see any other hands, so thank you. Yep. All right. That takes care of reports. It takes a public comment. One. All right, we have one. All right. That'll be Jeff Chester. Jeff. Good morning. Okay, Jeff, you got me now. You're muted. Okay. Jeff, are you there?
Hi, are you able to hear me okay? Am I coming through?
There you are. Yep.
Great. Yeah. Sorry about the delays on the remote end here. Just trying to push the buttons as fast as I can. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. Good morning. This is Jeff Chester speaking on behalf of Oceana. Yeah, I guess we just very briefly wanted to thank the council for your extensive discussion and thoughtfulness for the coastal pelagic species science and management needs item and the priorities and the discussion that you had about that under G5. We're very encouraged and optimistic that the pathway that you set out will, I think, will bear a lot of fruit to try to actually address many of the longstanding issues that have been raised by Oceana as well as industry and other stakeholders. I guess just because this is the future agenda planning, I guess this is where the sort of rubber meets the road in terms of scheduling some of those items. So we're really just hoping to see items come back, particularly potential amendment for the FMP at the November meeting, and then we did want to raise the issue just one more time and remind the council that we did ask and request during the open comment on B1 at this meeting a potential point of concern for the northern subpopulation of northern anchovy, given that the overfishing limit is 39,000 tons, and the most recent published biomass estimates in 2023 was 11,356 tons. 16,432 tons and 8,031 tons. And then most recently, I think less than 200 tons in this last survey. So the numbers are very low. We have heard that there potentially are anchovies in other areas that aren't being surveyed, but we do believe that this warrants a point of concern because the stock has been consistently so low below the overfishing limit. And we're asking that you essentially, either through the point of concern or just through future agenda planning, the next time that the Coastal Pelagic Species Management Team meets, that this can actually be an agendized discussion so that the data can come forward. And I think if nothing else, we'd like to see an adjustment on the overfishing limit to essentially reflect the new status of the stock as indicated by the acoustic trawl surveys, which right now do represent the best available science for the stock. So again, thank you for your long-term vision on coastal pelagics and the various topics and priorities. We're looking forward to participating in those and ask that you do agendize an item on northern subpopulation of northern anchovy to address the biomass concerns that we've raised. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Questions for Jeff? Corey Niles.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Jeff. Harkening back to our discussion yesterday on our science and CPS science and priorities, I mean, that's where we talked about what you just testified to. Did you not think our discussion there was adequate? And just, again, taking this moment to highlight the value of that agenda item so we don't have to re-litigate, so to reprioritize everything here again today. But so are you saying that our discussion fell short yesterday on your testimony here?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Niles. Yeah, thank you for the question and the opportunity to clarify. I think in terms of the long-term approach for and the discussion about moving northern subpopulation of northern anchovy into sort of a new framework, that in the longer term makes a lot of sense, and we were very supportive of that and did not feel like the conversation fell short on that respect. I guess the issue though is that in the very near term, the council and NIMS have a ongoing responsibility to ensure that annual specifications every year and the reference points, particularly overfishing limit in this case, are based on best available science, and that's an ongoing responsibility every single year. That item does not come up ever under any agenda item. So I guess that we see the science and management needs and the priorities that were placed for northern anchovy is making a lot of sense for the longer term issue of more regular updates. But I guess there is a more immediate concern in the current year with the numbers now. So we hope that doesn't necessarily result in a big reshuffle, that it can be added as an additional agenda item as we first discussed under B1. So hopefully that helps clarify the long term versus the short term. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Corey. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks, Jeff. All right. That concludes public comment. This takes us to council action. Director Byrd.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe in the interest of helping to lead into some council discussion here, appreciate all the input from the advisory bodies, the public, and some of the Q&A that you all had. And throughout the course of that, I've made a couple of notes, proposals here on my year-at-a-glance summary that would potentially change what we're looking at through the balance of the year. So one thing that I would suggest we have on the docket for June, shaded for now, is what I'll call the deregulatory order. So some discussion in the council about what that might mean for our future planning, what it means for the agenda items we might take up, and implementing regulations or lack thereof. So as Mr. Wolf indicated, we are planning to take this up during the CCC meeting, and we hope that we'll have more clarity at that time. Another thing I made note of was Mr. German's suggestion that we combine the Tri-State Enforcement Report and the U.S. Coast Guard report into one meeting. I think that makes some sense. And then I made note of the CPSMT suggestion that we strike CPS EFPs in November. So those are the three things that I'll offer up to you all that have sort of wedged themselves in my mind after listening to these conversations. But of course, there are a few other ideas, and happy to discuss any of those.
Okay, with that, open the floor discussion. Rebecca Lynn.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Executive Director Burton, for that report. I wonder if we could also discuss the latest guidance from I don't know if it was from OMB or OIRA about NEPA. Be helpful to have an update on that. Thank you.
Ryan Wolf.
Yeah, the Chair. Thank you, Dr. Lynn, for the question. I'm afraid I don't have an update on that guidance at this point in time. I will see what I can find while we sit here, but and I'm not certain about whether that will be discussed at the CCC yet too, but let me see if I can find a little bit more information. Thanks.
Becca?
Yeah, sorry, I should have been clear. I meant for this next June event meeting where we will be discussing various things, if you have an update at the time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Anyone else? Lynn Mattis.
Thank you, Chair. Going to try to help speak to the question that the GMT posed to us on some recommendations on how they should prioritize. Really appreciate Executive Director Burton and Deputy Director Ames's proactive changes to the draft June agenda based on the GMT report. I had the opportunity to sit and pencil stuff out with Ms. Waller from council staff, and I know she's been talking with Mr. Phillips. I did not check with my counterparts to the north and south to see if they agree with this, so they may have some additional thoughts. But after a strategy session with Ms. Waller, I think the GMT should prioritize, their highest priority should be stock definitions and in-season management. Their secondary priorities should be adopt stock assessments and the harvest specifications planning. Do not prioritize C1 NIMS report, and probably do not prioritize C2 limited entry fixed year follow-on FPA, as that is pretty well done. Do have a question mark right now on C5 intersector allocation and C7 harvest specifications flexibility scoping. That may depend on what comes about in the briefing book. But again, trying to prioritize stock definitions and in-season as the two top priorities, and then stock assessments and specs planning as the next highest priorities. The GMT did recommend starting at 1 on June 11th. The draft agenda has them starting at 8. Talking with Ms. Waller yesterday, that was assuming that some of the GMT members would be wanting to participate in the SSC meeting that morning. And I think Ms. Waller, Mr. Phillips, and the GMT leadership will work on scheduling stuff in the morning for the GMT so that they can be strategic in who's going where. So hopefully that helps the GMT with some of their planning. And And this isn't from the full GMT. This is just from the 2 GMT folks that work with me. Looking to September, there are 3 out of 4 groundfish items on day 1 of the council meeting are potentially fairly meaty items, and they are wondering if they can maybe, again, this is just from Christian and Caitlin, wondering about a September 17th start for the GMT so that they have a day and a half or 2 days to start working on reports for some meaty items on the first day of the council meeting. And we can discuss that piece more in June when we know better what our September agenda is, but I was asked to flag that as a possibility. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Asia?
Thank you, and thank you, Lynn, for working through some of that with folks. I agree with everything you said, and I was just reflecting. Miss Lynn earlier this week said, like, everything is pre-chewed for us, and we're like little baby birds getting the the information fed into our mouths. And I don't think that we need to have that in every case. And so I would like this practice there more of especially with the GMT when they have a really weighty meeting, kind of cutting down what they really need to focus on. I would, extend that same suggestion to the GAP if possible, like just to say, we might not need reports for everything. And I think that could streamline some of our their workload, especially as we're reducing time for these meetings. So I support everything that you said about June, though.
Who else? Vice Chair Hassemer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just checked real quick in response to Dr. Lent's question. The CCC will be discussing the NEPA issue at the May meeting, so I'll leave it to Executive Director because we have a CCC update on the agenda already and there's room we could put 2 or 3 hours for NEPA and deregulation in there. But we will discuss it.
All right. Thank you, Pete. Anyone else? Director Burton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then just in response to the GMT prioritization, thank you for that overview, Ms. Mattis. Just to make sure we're on the same page, I think, some of the things that we look to the GMT to help with could just be, peer-to-peer exchange and might not need floor time. And so as I think about, your question about intersector allocation review, there are some dynamics there that current and former council members have been concerned about. And so it may warrant a team statement. I would, at a minimum, envision the GMT and Ms. Waller having an exchange about that item. And so maybe it's just a peer-to-peer discussion, but I'm happy to talk more with Ms. Ames and Ms. Waller about whether we should expect or plan for a GMT statement there. I think there might still be a good reason to.
Lynn?
Yeah. Through the chair, thank you, Executive Director Burton. I appreciate that. And just because I said it wasn't a priority, I didn't expect they wouldn't talk about it at all. There was just those 2 items that there's a bit of unknown as to what all they're going to contain, and I think that will determine it. But I do expect the GMT and GAP will be having discussions about these with careful guidance from their staff officers. So definitely appreciate the clarification.
Great, thanks, Lynn. Corey Ridings.
Thanks, Chair. I'm thinking a little bit about the public comment we heard today as well as on day 1 regarding the northern subpopulation of northern anchovy, and also reflecting on the discussion we had yesterday. I think that yesterday we made some progress towards some of the longer term issues regarding that stock in terms of thinking about if and when a stock assessment is necessary, as well as the distribution term. I think Dr. Chester and Oceana raised very good points, however, about what is the current biomass of that stock and what our management obligations there are, and sort of the shorter term nature, which he spoke to today, that differs from the work that we talked about yesterday. So I think I'm leaning towards perhaps a suggestion to think about adding an item in November, which is the next time our CPS folks meet, to be able to address this concern. And I think my initial thinking around this would be to, I'm looking for obviously thoughts from around the table, especially council staff, about some sort of discussion draft or white paper or sort of status document that could outline a little bit of where we are there and provide the council some updates on where we are with the science behind that, the BSIA, the current management structure, and help us figure out under that point of concern framework, which I think we have met, if further steps are warranted.
Hey, Corey? Good. Corey Niles?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think yesterday was the place to talk about this. I know it was the first time we did this, but in my mind, it was in the mix of things we discussed for priority yesterday. Again, it was the first time we've done it for CPS, and so different expectations, but that's where we have to ask think about all the work that's needed and the staff and at the science centers, the management teams, and everywhere else, and then figure out what our highest priorities are. So I'm going to, again, repeat, I think that's the value of that item. We left it open as when it comes back again, but we can't be doing this. It's not efficient to be doing this in the workload planning item. And I think what I heard from the teams was the catch is low. Yeah, maybe we expect biomass to fluctuate. I think that was known when the OFL was set. I don't remember the details. Again, it's not good to bring up the details now. I know WDFW, we do collect the fishery-dependent data. The landings are small, but I think that was in the mix of things yesterday. But maybe the National Marine Fisheries Service has a response. But I know within our delegation talked about the feasibility of doing an assessment and quite a bit of work, and not a lot of catch or a lot of data that would go into it.
You, Corey? All right. Corey Ridings?
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to give I don't know if NIMS wanted to respond to Mr. Niles or not. Good. Okay. Thanks, excuse me. Thanks, Mr. Niles, for your thoughts on that. I completely agree with you in terms of how this council decides to prioritize work and kind of keeping those lanes, staying in our lanes and being very thoughtful about where that's done. I think I guess I'm not disagreeing with you, but sort of adding to that in the sense that what we discussed yesterday was the things that we discussed were longer term in terms of thinking about if and when to have a stock assessment for our stocks or various species within the FMP. Also thinking about that distribution term, but in my mind, we didn't specifically have a discussion around this issue, which to me feels shorter, and that is around the point of concern framework. And then we have had evidence presented to us that would, in my mind, trigger that point of concern framework. And so I feel it is our obligation to address that. I really appreciate what you said about Washington's perspective. I will fully own that I have not dug into that data. I'm not kind of aware of that. It's not top of mind in the sense it hasn't been, at least to my knowledge, presented to us recently in a way where we can think about this. So my request was sort of to do that, which is to have some of that data presented to us so we could definitively decide if that point of concern framework had been triggered and taking further action was necessary.
Corey Niles?
Thanks, Corey. Brief, and again, totally normal to have different expectations of what happened yesterday, and but I'm disputing this difference between short and long term difference. Yesterday was where if we could do everything, we would have done it now, and I'm not criticizing but we can't because we only have so many scientists and management team members, and so what we're doing is picking there's probably ways of improving most of what we have. It doesn't mean that everything we have is wrong or contrary to law, but we could do improvements. And if we had all the staff in the world, we would take them up now. And that's what we were doing yesterday. What is the highest conservation needs and the best use of staff resources? So I'm just not seeing it as short versus last term. Sorry, Ryan, I know you have a response.
Thank you, Corey. Right, Wolf?
No, I didn't. I wasn't trying to rush you, Corey. I think I appreciate your points there, and agree with you on kind of the process discussion. To the other Corey, also appreciate the general comments that if we are potentially hearing something that could trigger this, that we should start to think about it. But I would just note that from NIM's perspective, I think we have a disagreement with some of the comments that were made of whether this really is at that level. And since it really is kind of one of our main responsibilities to come to this council, if we see concern in our work, we would do so. We will do so. We have done so. We do. That's really our job. And as we heard from the SSC, those ATM estimates cannot be viewed as total biomass numbers. And so from our perspective, we don't. From our perspective, I think kind of Corey Niles touched on this too. The concern in our view for the stock is actually very low, and it's not in a situation to trigger that. So thanks.
Corey Ridings?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Wolf. That's very helpful to hear that described that way. Perhaps I could just adjust my request then and say nothing is needed on the agenda, but to say if NIMS would be willing to include that as part of their NIMS report in November to provide a little bit more background, maybe a little bit more data so that the council could revisit that and just get a slightly deeper understanding of what you're describing and make sure that we're responding to what we heard and make sure that we do not need to trigger that point of concern framework.
Okay, thanks, Corey. All right. Oh, Corey Niles.
I was going to change topics. Lynn, did you have something? Okay. Couple thoughts, somewhat tied together. First of all, Merrick, thank you for the picking up on that deregulatory guidance and the CCC. I think it is. We do need, and the gear switching was an example of a rule that's going through. I can't think of other examples, and there could be consequences of that on some other things. So appreciate you picking up on that and the enforcement consultants and Coast Guard's recommendations. So, and if you said this in your overview, I missed it, and I'm having trouble reading this morning. But so on this, you're also what's going on. We have the stock assessment, hiring a consultant to review our stock assessment process, and how is that fitting in on the year at a glance?
Director Bird.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Niles. Let's see, quick update on that process. So we did have an RFP that was put out shortly after, I don't know, all the timelines run together in my head, but it closed recently. We had two very excellent bids. I am still really wrangling over which one to select, but I'll have to do that here in the next day or two in order to make a headway. So both of those bids contemplate ending the project in December, having a final report in December. And what I have contemplated is the schedule will depend on the outcome of that report. And what I would anticipate us doing is taking that report and then several of you working with me and folks from the science centers to say, what does this mean for us, and do we want to try to reformulate or reconstruct our process? That does not show up on the YAG right now, but I think it may make sense to make note of it or shade it somewhere just so we don't forget that this will come back. I certainly won't forget, but perhaps in the interest of transparency and communication, that we do expect something to show up early next year. Does that answer your question, Mr. Niles?
Yes, thank you, Merrick. Perfect. Not totally connected, but somewhat connected on the star panel comments that I asked a question about to the SSC. I don't know what I'm sure council staff is helping with the science centers and everyone, but I would strongly encourage you to help find another reviewer for that yellowtail panel. I know our SSC is stretched thin, but in someone who's actually done their PhD in stock assessment, I think you're going to have one CIE reviewer, and I think John Budger probably earned his over time a second PhD in stock assessment. But our process will be reviewed. Maybe it's overkill when we get the report back, but I think another reviewer is needed for both those panels. on that, we do probably have an individual or two. Teresa's working on too many stat teams, excuse me, and Fabio as well. But if I'm just offering, and I'm sure the same is for ODFW, CFW, and if they can't find a NIMS or someone else in the States, may have folks who could serve as reviewers. But I don't know. It's been a long time since I've known what council staff's role is in helping with that. But I know you do help, and asking you to please do what we can to find another reviewer for those panels.
All right. Thanks, Corey. Okay. Dr. Bird.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Niles. I'll just confirm that we are working on that and trying to help shore up some of the things that NIMS has been unable to do here over the last few months. Thankfully, our friend and colleague John DeVore has a list of potential people that could be reviewers, and so we've been going over that and adding to it. And time is short between now and May, but I'm hopeful we can find someone.
Okay. All right. Lynn Mattis.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of two small, well, hopefully small items looking forward. The HMS-MT request for June. I know there's a lot of flux and uncertainty with NIMS and knowing when and if they can travel, and we might not have it in time, but the consideration the HMS-MT asked about either everyone in person or everyone in line. We'd just like y'all to keep that in mind as you're scheduling, and as we get closer to the June meeting, who knows what's going to be going on with the NIMS travel at the time, and it may not be possible, but just wanted to keep that in mind. The other piece is the harvest specifications flexibility scoping item. I know a lot of people are calling it specs flex. I'm afraid to say that too often because I'm going to get tongue-tied. We have scoping on the agenda in June, and based on the back and forth during open comment and some of our discussions under, I think it was C4, about wanting to move forward. I don't see that item anywhere else on the year at a glance. Just for my own thinking, just to make sure I'm thinking kind of the same lines you all are. Depending on what comes out of scoping, is that what will determine when we schedule things next? Because maybe right now it's too soon to put that on the schedule because we don't know what it might involve. Is that the thinking? And we'll see more in June. Thank you.
Dr. Burden?
Yeah, appreciate the question, Ms. Mattis, and I'm happy to look to Kelly too to help with the answer. But what we'd envision doing is now that we are unshading it and looking to move forward, we'll go through scoping, we'll do our work planning, we'll get added clarity about what this looks like and how we can proceed and execute on the work. That then allows us to fill out the year at a glance in a little more informative way than it is now. So I don't know, Kelly, if you want to add anything to that.
Kelly? Nope, good. Okay. Thumbs up.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. And I think that'll help some of our public who are listening to not know what that plan is. So thank you very much.
Ryan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Ms. Mattis' comments. Yeah, I noted the HMS-MT report as well. We will work on that. The council meetings have been prioritized at least to get clarity on NIMS travel. We obviously had a little bit more attendees at this one, so we'll be working on that with council staff, and we'll take that into account and try to get understanding on that as soon as we can, and definitely well before the meeting notice goes out, so there's advance time. I also wanted to note the fact that it looks like we have a kind of a shorter day on Sunday and then a longer day on day last, and I believe, and Ms. Dames can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe some of that intent has probably been because of my interventions that NIMS has challenges on weekend, and we have some very substantial agenda items on Monday right now on the groundfish side. So again, there has been increased support for an NIMS engagement, at least at council meetings. So should I get more information between now and the time the meeting notice needs to come out, that we would be able to participate more, either remotely or on that Sunday, perhaps then some of those items could be moved up so that we have a shorter day last. But if it's okay with the council, I would probably need some time between now and the next meeting to work that out with council staff. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Rebecca?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank Ms. Mattis for raising the issue of the special projects. I believe that at the next FIW meeting, we'll have a report on special project number 3 and how that's going to be integrated into the FIW's work, and hopefully report out on that as well under the agenda item that's currently labeled as HMS Roadmap. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Rebecca. Anyone else? Oh, Corey Ridings.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at the SSC report and just wanted to note the SSC Economic Subcommittee that's proposing to review the Trawl Cat Shares program review in advance of the meeting. So just that sounds like a good idea, and endorsing that. Hope we can have that happen. Also, the CPS subcommittee doing a review of the new integrated survey. I know that moving into that survey being integrated, we heard from a lot of the public some concerns about what would be lost in that. So I think it would be beneficial to make sure that that extra review is provided as well as recommended by the SSC. And finally, I think this is perhaps a question for council staff. The SSC has also noted about preseason report 1 and how that was given to the SSC a couple days before the March meeting, and that, as they note, can limit comprehensive and careful review by all members. So they've made the suggestion of a comprehensive view between April and November. So I guess I'm putting that out to council staff if that seems reasonable.
Dr. Burton?
Thank you. And yeah, this is something that we're continuing to try to find better ways for the SSC to have a more careful review with our salmon documents. I don't have an initial reaction to that timeline other than to say it seems reasonable, but I don't have all the details in my mind. So I'll look at Kelly and see if you have anything else to add, Kelly.
Okay. Thanks, Corey. Marcy, you're up, go.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. On the topic of salmon, and even perhaps in response to Corey's suggestion, we might have yet another salmon agenda item here later in the fall. I just want to go back to your response, Merrick, on the potential for in-person for the salmon groups in September. I completely understand where you're coming from with regard to scheduling advisory bodies in person and the need for efficiencies and cost savings. But I would just hope that as we get closer to September, we give this some serious thought. I'm just thinking about the weight of the items scheduled right now for September, and they're awfully meaty. And of course, NIMS Travel has a role here, but I would just, recommend that maybe we consider shading in the little new matrix here, rather than remote for September. TBD would be possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Asia?
Thank you, Chair Pettinger. And I'm looking for confirmation on my understanding of something regarding the specifications flexibility action, and then this is just general understanding too for other actions for scheduling and for communication back to industry. With that action in particular, the comment at the beginning of the meeting from Groundfish Industry was really focused on they were looking for a certain schedule around when that action would play out. And my understanding of how I'm seeing things on the schedule right now is that we're scheduling scoping for June, but that we can't necessarily schedule out further because we also don't really know what the scope of that action will be. And then we're leaving latitude for the council and council staff to tell us when they're able to bring things back and think through the best path forward for that, rather than trying to force things into the schedule anymore. So really just looking for confirmation that that's how we intend to approach things. In the past, when I've sat on this council too, we did a lot of fighting during this agenda item about like setting the exact timeline for things. And then I know that that can also create some uncertainty for industry too, when they're looking for something to play out over a certain schedule. And it probably also creates uncertainty and anxiety for council staff when they're looking to like push forward work when like they may need more time or it may align with broader schedules. So I just wanted to like say that in public and hear you guys respond to that in public and ground truth whether your view of the world is the same as mine. So thank you.
Dr. Burton?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that question. It sounds like you do have it right, Ms. Schumelo. What we're doing is looking to get more information and clarity about what that item is through the scoping action. Kelly and I then work closely with the staff officers to map out a schedule that's doable and can bring you the materials that are adequate to help support decision making. And so that's in response to one of your comments where in the past, I recall this too, the council used to specify when you wanted things done. Kelly and I have taken some of that territory back, said, we'll tell you when we're ready. And so there's a bit of a dance we have to do here. And so, but I do think it's important that we as staff have the time to produce materials that are adequate for the record, that help explore all the trade-offs and help make sure you can make a good decision. So that's why we've taken some of that. I would just say that it's clear to me there's a lot of interest in doing this in a, I won't say rapid fashion, but there are some urgent issues that I think a lot of you are keying in on and hoping that we can move quickly on, and we have heard that. So I don't expect this to be something that we stretch out for years and years.
Gager? All right. I'm not seeing any other hands, Merrick. Okay. Dr. Burton.
Just say thank you for the healthy, robust discussion here. Lots of good ideas. Kelly, I'll look to you to see if you have anything else you wanted to add or any questions in your mind. Otherwise, I think you're doing well. I think we're done. Yep. Okay. Thanks.
All righty. Well done, everyone. We haven't anything about no new information on salmon, so probably break now. Come back at 10:45. Okay, come back at 10:45, and we'll hopefully have a salmon motion ready to go. So. All right, welcome back. We're on to our last agenda item here today. That would be C8, and turn to Vice Chair Hassemer to take us off. Pete?
Thank you, Chair Pettinger. Good morning, all. As usual, I will immediately turn to Angela Forstall for the overview. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is agenda item D8, the final salmon agenda item for your meeting, 2025 Management Measures Final Action. So the STT will review its analysis of the tentative measures that the Council has been looking at so far and answer any additional questions. And final adoption of management measures will follow the comments of advisory bodies, tribes, agencies, and the public. The action will be submitted to the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and the final motions must be visible and in writing. And to avoid any unnecessary delays or confusions, the STT and other documents may undergo some minor edits after the meeting concludes. So council members should be prepared to provide written motions, and your tasks today are to adopt the final treaty Indian troll, non-Indian commercial, and recreational ocean salmon fishery management measures for submission to the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and if necessary, to identify and justify any regulations requiring implementation by emergency rule. And under this agenda item, you do have 5 signed up for public comment.
Right, thank you. Questions on the overview? Not seeing any questions, then we'll move to our reports. There are 2 salmon technical team reports. Dr. Mike O'Farrell is here for those. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, council members. I'll be referring to agenda item D8A, supplemental STT report 1, the preliminary analysis of tentative 2025 ocean salmon fishery management measures. I'm going to skip to page 12. At the top of the page, table 3, the date is 2026. It should be 2025. Moving on to the analysis. On page 14, all the Chinook stocks on page 14 meet their objectives. Moving on to page 15, the same is true for the Chinook stocks on page 15. All are meeting their objectives. Continuing down table 5 on page 16, all the stocks are meeting their objectives. And on page 17, coho stocks, all are meeting their objectives. That concludes the update of the STT analysis performed last night. I, at the council's request, of course, wanted to read off the de minimis language for Klamath River Fall Chinook, if you'd like. We did produce an analysis of Klamath River Fall Chinook de minimis fisheries in preseason report 2. I could read that into the record now if you like.
Let me check around on the first report. Are there any questions on that? Wrap up report 1. And I see no questions, so why don't you go ahead with the second report then?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is the Salmon Technical Team report on the 2025 Klamath River Fall Chinook de minimis exploitation rate. For 2025, the Klamath River Fall Chinook Harvest Control Rule specifies a de minimis maximum allowable exploitation rate of 10%. The Salmon Fishery Management Plan requires consideration of several factors when recommending de minimis exploitation rates. From the Salmon FMP, it says, when recommending an allowable de minimis exploitation rate in a given year, the Council shall also consider the following circumstances: the potential for critically low natural spawner abundance, including considerations for substocks that may fall below crucial genetic thresholds, spawner abundance levels in recent years, the status of commingled stocks, indicators of marine and freshwater environmental conditions, minimum needs for tribal fisheries, whether the stock is currently in approaching an overfished condition, whether the stock is considered or is currently overfished, and other considerations as appropriate. The STT has assessed these circumstances with the exception of minimal needs for tribal fisheries. Potential for low spawner abundance. Potential for critically low natural spawner abundance could be considered high. The 2025 minimum natural area spawner escapement of 18,687 adults is lower than the minimum stock size threshold of 30,525 and SMSY 40,700 natural area adult spawners. A natural area adult escapement of 18,687 would represent the seventh lowest value over the past 49 years of data. Substocks. To assess the potential for a critically low abundance of substocks, a statistical model cited here in the report was applied to the historical run size data to assess the probability that the escapement to either the Salmon, Scott, or Shasta rivers would fall below 720 adults, given a total basin-wide natural area escapement of 18,687 in 2025. The 720 adult escapement threshold for these substocks is based on an effective population size considerations. Application of the model suggests that at least one of the substocks would fall below the 720 adult threshold with a probability of 56%. Recent spawner abundance. The natural area adult spawner escapement has been lower than the MSST in 8 of the last 10 years and 4 of the last 5 years. The 2025 forecast of natural area adult spawners in the absence of fishing is 20,763 adults, which is lower than SMSY and the MSST. If fishing seasons are structured such that the maximum allowable exploitation rate of 10% is met, the natural area adult spawner escapement is 18,687, which is lower than the MSST and the SMSY. Commingled stocks. With regard to commingled stocks, Sacramento River Fall Chinook have a low abundance forecast and are likely to constrain ocean fisheries in 2025. Salt coho may also constrain 2025 ocean fisheries in California and Oregon. Indicators of marine and freshwater environmental conditions. The 2024 and through 2025 California Current Integrated Ecosystem Assessment, Ecosystem Status Report, provides indicator-based outlooks for Klamath River Fall Chinook for the 2025 and 2026 return years. The indicator-based outlook is consistent with low returns in 2025. Appendix J of the CCIEA report provides more detailed information on the habitat indicators relevant to the 2025 return year. Approaching an overfished condition. Klamath River Fall Chinook currently meet the criteria for being at risk of approaching an overfished condition. Overfish status. Klamath River Fall Chinook was declared overfished following the 2017 escapement and continues to meet the criteria for overfish status in 2025. And there is a reference there to the salmon FMP. I would note that this version of the analysis was published in preseason report 2. Since then, you may remember that we made a change, a small change to the assessment or the data that goes into the assessment. And we are going to be updating this and presenting it in pre-3, or putting it into the pre-3 document. We've already done some preliminary work, and the changes are going to be very minor and not substantially change the outcome. And that's my statement.
Thank you. Let me look around and see if there are any questions for Dr. O'Farrell. Marcia Remco.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Dr. O'Farrell. In several places in the report that you just read into the record, I believe you used the number 18,687. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Just for reference, the online version of this report has a different number. It references 19,417.
Oops.
Thanks.
Sorry about hitting the microphone for the 10th time this week. Yes, thank you. I think we had a little version control issue here. The 19,001 is the correct one that will be going forward into pre-3. But the whole document for the pre-3 version of this analysis isn't quite ready yet. So apologies for the version control situation.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, I was wondering, so the 19,000 numbers are the correct ones?
Yes, they are.
All right. Other questions for Dr. O'Farrell on the second report? Not seeing any? Thank you. That completes the STT reports. I want to see if there are any other management reports here. David Sones.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I believe at this time the Makah tribe does have a testimony, if this is the proper time to put it in. Thank you.
Sure. We'll have them come on up here. Good morning, all.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is TJ Green, chairman for the Makah tribe, and I'm joined with our fisheries director, Russell Savek, our fisheries biologist, Tiffany Peterson, and our salmon biologist, Dion Roche. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today regarding our 2025 Ocean Treaty Troll Salmon Fisheries proposal. Throughout this preseason process in 2025, the Makah tribe has diligently worked to have sincere and honest discussions with Quinault Treaty Area tribes and our shared Ocean Treaty Troll fishery. While there are some areas that we've agreed on, the quotas of 45,000 Chinook and 37,500 coho, there is one outstanding issue in which we find ourselves at an impasse. Despite extensive discussions amongst coastal tribes, there is currently no agreement on Ocean Treaty Troll closing date. We've been addressing concerns about our impacts on coastal stocks throughout the month of September. And based on all of the available scientific evidence, we've concluded that reinstating the September 30th closing date for Ocean Treaty Troll's fishery would not significantly impact coastal coho stocks of concern. As we mentioned in our testimony Friday, the Makah tribe is proposing to reinstate the traditional closing date of September 30th. In recent years, the treaty ocean troll fishery has closed on September 15th, but this has not always been the case. In 1995, in an effort to reduce impacts and still allow for minimal fisheries, we instituted a closing date of September 15th. This closing date was intended to be a temporary conservation measure, but despite annual fluctuations in coho abundance, this early closing date has remained in place for the Ocean Treaty Troll fishery. However, it has not limited the non-tribal ocean fisheries, which typically stay open through September 30th. Closing early only in years of extreme conservation concerns. With that said, a final motion last year in the 2024 Ocean Treaty Troll fishery included the commitment of coastal tribes to execute this test fishery so that we can better understand the impacts of the treaty troll fishery in the second half of September. Later that year, Quinault opted not to participate in the test fishery. As you know, we've gone great lengths to understand the impacts of restoring the Ocean Treaty Troll closing date to September 30th. We've examined all pre-existing data sources, FRAM, coded wire tag, and concluded that to take one step further by conducting a September test fishery. As mentioned in our earlier presentation, while there is some variation among the three data sources, the stocks that contribute to the treaty troll fishery in late September are primarily those originating in Canada in the Puget Sound. Other stocks make up only a small portion of the total impacts. Most notably, Washington coastal coho stocks contributed to about 15% in the last half of September. This includes stocks from Willapa Bay to the Suyaz River, which encompass all coastal stocks throughout Washington coast. We want to highlight that the Queets Natural Coho, which was the stock that originally forced this issue, contributed at a level of 0%. As a reminder, the federal government cannot restrict tribal fisheries unless there is a demonstrated science-based conservation reason. We've demonstrated from our analysis that there is not a science-based conservation reason to restrict the treaty ocean troll fishery closing date to September 15th. In contrast, closing this fishery on September 15th is an unnecessary economic impact to the families that depend on that fishery. The model runs performed by the STT and presented to the Council under Agenda Item D7 demonstrate that the proposal fisheries package has met the management criteria on Council-managed stocks. With conservation objectives being satisfied, there is no science-based biological reason for the treaty troll fishery to be further restricted. Restoring the treaty ocean troll fishery to a closing date of September 30th would simply allow tribes to utilize the impacts that have already been modeled for Coho and Chinook. The Makah tribe has committed to working with the other coastal tribes on developing and executing a test fishery in September that would collect genetic samples over multiple years and for all ocean treaty troll catch areas so that we can further refine our understanding of coho stock composition within that time period. We'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity, members of council. We appreciate all of your hard work that you do, and this has been a long week for everyone we know, and we appreciate this opportunity on this last day. But we also would like your kind consideration and support of the scientific process that we went through in reestablishing the September 30th closing date. With that, we are open to any questions that the council may have.
Right, thank you. Let me look around and see if there's any questions. And not seeing any.
Okay. So, sorry, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Russell Savek does have a statement he'd like to make.
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Green. I appreciate the time. Chairman Green pretty much covered everything that we need to say on this issue, but I'd just like to, well, first of all, say that I come here standing on the 1855 Treaty of Nia Bay. And, you know, I've been in this process for a while now, and I've been very fortunate because I've been guided through this process by in my world, two great men, and you know who they are, Mr. Joner and Mr. Phil Anderson. I've been very fortunate to have them help me through this process throughout the years. They've taught me to trust in the Pacific Fisheries Management Council process and trust in the Magnuson-Stevens Act and the guiding principles there. Also, I trust in USD Washington under the Conservation Necessity Standard, where it states that federal and state regulations must be reasonable and necessary for the perpetuation of a fish or fish stock. Over the years, you know, I've talked with several people, of course, about this council, and most everybody that I talk to say that, you know, this Pacific Fisheries Management Council is probably the best fisheries management council in the nation. And you know, we understand that you guys set the standard for basing your decisions, your fisheries management decisions, on scientific information. And, you know, throughout the years, you know, the Macaw tribe, we've taken that that example and we use it in developing our fisheries management program. Our fisheries management program is being developed in a way that supports an ecosystem-based management approach to all things. And so we pride ourselves on the research, the monitoring, and the restoration programs that we conduct within our program. And we pride ourselves on the professionals that we hire to conduct the studies and the monitoring and all the work that we do in the field. And the Macaw tribe is very fortunate because we end up getting some very very ambitious, very professional-minded people, like the two people to my left, Dion Roach and Tiffany Peterson. They're the ones that initiated that test fishery for September, and the work that they needed to do leading up to actually being on the water and doing the work on the water was just amazing to watch. And I want to showcase them today because they do an outstanding job. And I want everybody to understand that's how I feel about them and appreciate all the work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Lent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you, Chairman Green and Mr. Stavik and the whole team for this information that you're bringing to us. I've certainly learned a lot this week about all the contributions made by the tribal representatives working on the ground, and a lot of history and culture and knowledge that for a novice like me is just extremely helpful. I just have a follow-up question, and perhaps this should go to the state of Washington, but just a question. You mentioned that the non-tribal fisheries do stay open until the 30th. Could you clarify that if possible? And if not, I could direct the question to the state of Washington. Thank you.
I'll look around. Kyle, did you want to answer that since it's a non-tribal fishery?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The date has varied between years. It hasn't been consistent. We had a coho crash in the Northwest back in 2015. Some years immediately after that, we had planned closure dates as early as into August, but it has varied by year across time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Butch Smith.
Just a comment. I have many tribal friends, but I gotta say, Russ, back when it wasn't in vogue to talk to tribes, or we couldn't, reached out his hand and sat down and talked. And you know, this is an issue we never like to see. The tribes, you know, we have to referee, and we don't usually, and I'm very happy for that. But I will say, like, you know, many of the other tribes, but really Russ was the first one that we sat down and worked on some pretty good issues together, and always has stepped up to help model and make our salmon seasons work. And I just wanted to recognize that, Mr. Chairman, that there's a lot of good people in the tribal community, and Russ is second to none in my opinion, and I hope this works out. And I do appreciate all the years of working together with not only the Macaws but the other tribes, and I hope we can come to a positive solution that will work for everything. So I just wanted to say that publicly and recognize Mr. Speck for all the work he's done in the past and hopefully long into the future. We're all getting a little more gray hair and less hair, but I don't know, but I look forward to working for them, not, so we have fish for both our grandkids from generations to come. And I know we can do this. And anyway, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Butch.
Thank you. Let me look around once more. No other hands here. So Chairman Green and your team members there, thank you very much for that comment. David Soames?
Yes, I also have a report from the Columbia River tribes.
All right, and I see at least Mr. Wilbur Slockish is here. And Ms. High Eagle also. Good morning. I'll let you get settled and start when you're ready.
Okay, I will get started here, and I'd like to start off with our statement here that we've prepared and for your consideration. And it said, "Good day, members of the council. My name is Wilbur Slockish Jr. I am a member of the Yakima Nation and a commissioner with the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission. I am here with Jasmine High Eagle and absent Bruce Jim Sr. I am here to provide testimony on behalf of the four Columbia River Treaty Tribes, the Yakima Nation, Warm Springs, Umatilla, and Nez Perce tribes. As the council finalizes the ocean fisheries for this year, we would like to share some of our perspectives. These rights retained by our tribes over 150 years ago are critically important. These rights allow us to maintain our cultural and spiritual connection to the fish and all of our natural resources. We have had these connections with the fish since time immemorial. These rights also have resulted in our system of co-management of the fisheries and a system where we must all work together carefully to protect and rebuild salmon runs while fairly sharing the harvest. Non-treaty fisheries do not have superior rights to tribal fishing. By established case law, tribal fisheries are to be the last ones constrained. When these rights are respected, we work well together, and the treaty and non-treaty fisheries as well as the fish do better. As we work on salmon recovery together, all of our fisheries will improve. We also remind people of the need to continually focus on improving fish habitat. Fish habitat in freshwater has been degraded and destroyed for well over 100 years. Climate change is already affecting both freshwater areas and the ocean. Addressing climate change related on ocean conditions will be exceptionally difficult, but we can address many of the freshwater and estuarian conditions. The health of our people depends on the health of the tributaries, and the health of our people depends on the health of the salmon. The tribes have been leaders in both advocating for restoring habitat as well as actually doing the work to restore fish habitat. We work closely with our co-managers on these efforts. The benefits to restoring habitat cannot and only be measured over many years. It can take a very long time for ecosystems to heal. That is why we need to maintain continued focus on these efforts. We are concerned about the possibility of reduction in funding in many federal programs may adversely our efforts to continue habitat restoration work. We are also concerned about possible changes to regulations protecting habitat from pollution and timber harvest and other activities which actively adverse impact fish. One specific area of concern are recent reports that the administration is planning on eliminating the Pacific Coastal Salmon Recovery Fund. This appropriated $1.8 billion, an additional $2.2 billion in other contributions, and has resulted in the protection and restoration of the almost 1.2 million acres of salmon habitat. This money has provided important benefits and needs to be continued. We need to all work together to ensure that not only protections for habitat are maintained, but funding to continue the work of restoring habitat is also maintained. An area of fish habitat that has not had enough focus is the sedimentation around river mouths. Many of our river mouths have become filled with sediment that only allows narrow, shallow passages for juvenile fish to get through, which leaves them open to predation by birds and non-native fish. The conditions of the river mouths need to be addressed. Our rivers and streams are the lifeblood of our people and the nurseries of our salmon. For generations, these waters have sustained not only the fish, but the spirit, culture, and survival of our people. The salmon are more than food. They are our relative. But now the balance is broken. Clean, healthy water is not a luxury. It is a sacred responsibility. Every element of the coast salmon ecosystem plays a role in our traditions, our ceremonies, and our future. The fish have always taken care of us. The salmon need us more than ever to take care of them and their environment. Their survival is our survival. And this concludes our statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jasmine, you have
Ms.
something?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Jasmine Haigel. So as a management entity in the Columbia River, the Nez Perce Tribe is managing treaty harvests and implementing restoration actions on its own and with other co-managers to protect, maintain, and rebuild Columbia and Snake River salmon stocks, some of which are affected by council-managed fisheries in the ocean. We urge the Council to comply with the allocation provisions between treaty and non-treaty fisheries as set forth in the U.S. versus Oregon Management Agreement. For Upper Columbia Summer Chinook, Columbia Upriver Brights, Snake River Fall Chinook, and Columbia River Coho. For instance, the tribe produces Snake River Fall Chinook and Coho at the Nez Perce Tribal Hatchery on our reservation to help support spawning objectives and provide for opportunities for treaty and non-treaty fisheries in the main stem, Snake River, and on the Clearwater River. I appreciate the ocean fishery alternatives are expected to achieve in the 2025 criteria for these stocks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I have my own personal statement that is my opinion, and that we live in two worlds. Our people, we live in two worlds. One of that we've always had since the beginning of time. And now we had to adapt to a new system. And we were labeled just occupiers of this lands. We didn't own it. but yet our burial grounds were our title to this land. And some of our history is seeming to repeat itself again because of what is going on right now. And the current president is defying Supreme Court orders, and I remember reading about John Marshall when he made a ruling in our favor of our people, and Andrew Jackson, and he said, yeah, we'll let him enforce it, but I have the army. So, you know, these things have resulted in a lot of things, and it seems to be our history wants to be erased. But I urge you to remember back and take a good look at some books and stuff that our people are in. And one is The Doctrine of Discovery by Steve Newcomb. In there it gave the federal government the right to eliminate our people. So we've survived Andrew Jackson, we survived General Grant, and we will survive Donald Trump. So, you know, our history will never be erased as he is currently trying to do. So remember that. We're here, we were here, and when the colonizers arrived, they destroyed a lot of habitat in the name of profit, and that's what we're trying to repair. I know it will never be like it was, but at least to maintain and rebuild in the runs that are currently in place. And we face a lot of other things there, you know, the releasing of the environmental laws and stuff, and each one of those proposed developments is within our remaining lands that we have left. And I had one of the officials come to me and tell me, what can I do for you? What can we do there? And I said, well, you know, we don't have too much land left. We don't have much left to give, so we want to fight and retain what we have left. So please remember, these fish didn't come across the ocean, didn't come on the wagon train. They were here to take care of the tribal people, the many nations that are in this state. And that is a promise made by Isaac Stevens when he negotiated those treaties within our state of Washington and Oregon. But it tends to be forgotten. So you are the children of the promises that he made, that they will always ensure that there is fish in this river. And I hope that, you know, you take these words in a good way, because that's how I'm giving. I'm not trying to guilt trip you or anything like that, but I want you to understand the world that we live in. We lived with it in harmony with nature. We didn't dominate it. And that seems to be the primary thing. Dominate it, tame the river. So please remember that. This world can only take so much more of abuse that the industries have done to her. So remember that. And I urge you to study our history of what we have endured to still be here. And I want my grandchildren to be able to consume all of our foods not just see them in a museum or on a picture. So thank you for your time, and I hope you understand my additional comments, my opinion of the world that we live in. I've had to adapt, but I still want to be in my world where I take care of the elements, the water, the air, the land, and the animals, the plants, because they're all connected to our health. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening, and that concludes my personal opinion.
Thank you. Before you leave, let me look around and see if there's any questions or comments from council members here. Rebecca Lent.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the testimony and all the reminders of everything we have to do and the importance of habitat. I also want to thank you for arranging the evening session on marine mammal and bird predation. It was a great opportunity for us to learn about that. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Susan Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just wanted to echo Dr. Lynn's appreciation for the presentation. It was a lot of work. I learned a lot while we were there, and I appreciate that it also laid out some pathways and potential solutions. So I found it really, really helpful. And I'd also like to just extend my thanks again for your coming here. It takes a lot of time out of very busy schedules, and it's not very close to home. So I appreciate your words, you're hanging in there, and you're reminding us of our responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And yes, your words are important to us. We appreciate you being here, taking the time. I believe that completes our reports. We have some public comment sign-ups. And okay, they're on the screen before you. I was just trying to see who's online and who's in person. So all right. So we have James Dunlap is remote, I think. Is that the only one? Just want to make sure you understand, James, if you can scroll up, if you're third and fourth in line, so as we go through this, you understand and you're connected. So with that, we'll start with Mike Sorensen, who is here in person. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Council members. I'm Mike Sorensen, here to speak on my own, but I am a member of the SAS representing the Oregon Charter. This has been one of the toughest years that I've been doing this, trying to make everything work and hopefully make everybody as happy as can be. Funny thing, yesterday when I was sitting here in my room listening to the council speak about other things, I was cleaning out my wallet and I found one of my PFMC membership ID cards and my hair was brown. That being said, after we got through the package in March, we had a lot of public comments. Not a lot of people happy with the season came out for the recreational fishermen, and between our representative from commercial and myself and our sport rep, we were able to take care of that. Not everybody what everybody wanted, but it's working. And I was really proud to see how much when the SDT went through this package right here for the first time that I can ever remember, that the fish that Oregon manages to came out with no bolded numbers. That's why when John North sitting here did not have anything to do except for nothing to do but to add amendments to this except for language. We worked very hard on this, and I know not everybody's happy with some of the outcomes, but we did our best, and I appreciate you guys keeping me on as a SAS rep. I'm very proud to be sitting in these seats for many years. I can't tell you how many it was because I forget, but it's been an honor and is an honor to come here and do this for you guys. And thank you very much for your time. And I hope that we will get the support that we need to move on with our fisheries. And we'll see you in March of next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Sorensen on his testimony? Seeing no questions, thanks, Mike. Next, we have Doug. Doug, help me out with the pronunciation of your last name. Is Doug here? Maybe he's in the hallway. We'll come back and check again later before we close this out. So let's move on. James Dunlap. James, can you hear us? Should be ready.
Hear me?
Yes, we
Hello?
can. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me close out. I've got you on my phone and on my computer. Let's see. Yeah, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I want to first thank the PFMC Council and Dr. O'Farrell and our tribal representatives for reassessing the Klamath River tribal allocations. These methods for allocations have been a problem of concern for some time. I would like, to bring up an issue that I don't know if it's directly related to the PFMC and the management, the way that the allocations are made. I don't know if it's directly related to the PFMC and the management, the way that the allocations are made. I know that during recent years where we have fisheries disasters in the Klamath Management Zone, I know that during the Department of Commerce has policies.
James, you're cutting in and out. Sounds like you have two devices running. If you could, whichever one you're speaking into is coming through loud and clear. The other one is echoing back. If you can mute that one or turn it off.
Okay.
Have two devices running. If you could.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I believe that sounds better.
Okay, yeah, I was having trouble talking because I kept listening to myself speak. Some of the things that I've thought about and I've presented to the PFMC before was making allocations at least within the California, the Klamath Management Zone, equal or at least on par with the non-tribal allocations. We've encountered some really serious problems in dealing with the Department of Commerce over disaster monies because our tribe is not a commercial entity. Therefore, it has a problem representing the individuals or being acknowledged as representing the individual fishermen. I've talked with the other fishing agencies, specifically the Golden State Salmon Association, and the individual fishermen are allowed to make a request for disaster fundings on an individual basis. As tribal fishermen, and I'm speaking just for myself, I am a Yurok tribal fisherman. I'm a Yurok tribal commercial fisherman, but my main concern is always subsistence fish. Some of the problems that we run into are the policies concerning the Department of Commerce. And I don't know, I would like the PFMC to at least look into some way in which the individual fishermen can have access to disaster funding without having to go through the tribal allocation process. Individual fishermen catch a variety of different numbers of fish, whereas our tribal allocation is a blanket policy where you don't have to catch any fish to still get the same amount as the commercial fishermen who have been fishing for extended periods of time. And it's not based on the number of fish, it's based on the fact that you're a fisherman. And the allocations are really skewed at times. And I think I brought this up, whereas, you know, I was hoping, and this is my personal opinion, and I know that it may draw fire from other tribes, but at least on a test basis, perhaps when there are fish. I know this year is not going to be a good year for fisheries, but I would like to see the PFMC make an allocation, at least for the Klamath Management Zone, in the same manner and structure which they give to non-tribal fisheries, whereas they develop a percentage of in-river catch, a percentage of ocean catch, and a percentage of ocean commercial. And I think that this would bring about a lot of parity and a lot of opportunity for individual tribal fishermen. But I'd like to thank the PFMC for taking the time, and I know a good friend and Representative Keith Parker translates a lot of this, a lot of the information to me. But I would, again, just like to thank the PFMC Council in making these considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Dunlap on his testimony? And I don't see any hands. Thank you, James. Next, we have Larry Phillips. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Vice Chair Hassemer, members of the council. My name is Larry Phillips, and I represent the American Sport Fishing Association, covering fisheries policy on the West Coast. First, I want to express our appreciation for the work of the Salmon Advisory Subpanel, Salmon Technical Team, the council, many dedicated state, tribal, and federal fisheries managers. As we've heard from others, once again this year presented significant challenges for salmon management. Access to harvestable stocks continues to be limited, largely due to constraints imposed by the ESA and the presence of weak stocks. For those of us advocating for a better future for salmon, we often find ourselves in the minority. Unfortunately, we've seen a lack of prioritization by both state and federal governments when it comes to funding critical components of salmon recovery, including habitat restoration, hatchery improvements, and predator management. If our only response to low forecasts is to continue to further restrict recreational, commercial, and tribal fisheries, we're not solving the problem. While we support limited opportunity using new management approach proposed by California Fish and Wildlife, we remain deeply concerned about the long-term future of salmon in California. We recognize this proposal might not work for everyone and doesn't meet everyone's needs, but we remain hopeful that continued investments in improved management tools, better forecasting, harvest management, and hatchery systems will lead to a better future. Again, I appreciate and we appreciate all the hard work that everyone put into this year's this process, and look forward to working toward a better future for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Questions for Mr. Phillips on his testimony? Yeah. Corey Ridings.
Thanks, Vice. Thanks, Mr. Phillips. My question is regarding your recommendation. I think you said improved management tools around forecasting or something similar to that. Can you give us a little more specificity around that, or more of your thinking about exactly what those tools you're looking for or recommending?
Well, I not necessarily what I'm looking for. I think we've made significant investments in sibling-based forecast, cohort reconstruction. We're pleased that that work is happening. Clearly, our ability to accurately forecast preseason expectations and then develop management measures that meet conservation objectives is a critical component of responsibly managing this fishery and sustainably managing this fishery into the future.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks, Larry. Next, we move on to Ryan Johnson and Dave Johnson. Good morning, Johnson and Johnson.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm the Washington Troll representative on the SAS, and this is my own public testimony, but highly related. I would just like to say that I support the trade contained in the regulation packet for this year's salmon season structure. This trade helps meet the commercial and recreational fishery objectives, as well as the allocation priorities of each of our sectors. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the council. My name is Dave Johnson. I'm the Washington Sport representative on the SAS, and I also support the trade between troll and sport. It's to provide flexibility to meet the dynamic nature of the fisheries and help our small communities, and it does meet the FMP.
Thank you. Any questions regarding their testimony? Not seeing any. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Dave.
I have one more comment, if you don't mind, Mr. Vice Chair.
Please go ahead.
Why I'm here. I would just like to, thank Robin Elke for the last 7 years. She has made a wonderful difference in the SAS, and I just want to thank you. You've made my life better. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for that. I think we need to circle back. Doug? And doesn't appear we have him, so I think we've gone through our entire list. Yep. So, all right, that completes our public comment and takes us to our council task, which is final action on this agenda item. Let's see if there's any discussion to be had before we look to any motions for final action. Is there anything that needs to be said? If not, then I'll change it up and go through sort of alphabetical order here. Start with Kyle Addix.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hassemer. I do have a motion for the council today. I move that the council adopt for submission to the U.S. Secretary of Commerce the non-Indian commercial and recreational salmon management measures for the area north of Cape Falcon as presented in Agenda Item D8A, Supplemental STT Report 1, dated April 15th, 2025, with the following modifications. On Table 1, the North of Falcon Commercial Troll Management Measures on Page 1 for the U.S.-Canada border to Cape Falcon summer season for sub-areas north of Ledbetter Point, change the season end date to September 15. On Table 2, North of Falcon Recreational Management Measures on Page 7 for the U.S.-Canada border to Ledbetter Point, the Nia Bay, La Push, and Westport sub-areas, change season end dates to September 15. And for the Ledbetter to Cape Falcon, the Columbia River sub-area, add prior to June 25th, possession of salmon on board a vessel is prohibited on days when the sub-area is closed to salmon retention.
Thank you. I followed along. That language appears accurate and complete. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Butch Smith. Please speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. First, as always, thanks to the Salmon Technical Team, the Salmon Advisory Subpanel, all of the state, tribal, federal staff that pour in an enormous amount of work each year, starting in January with our Pacific Salmon Commission meetings and leading straight from those winter meetings into our March and April council meetings. We couldn't get here without all of you. Every year seems to give us a unique set of challenges for fishery planning north of Falcon. This year we had pretty strong Chinook abundances for Columbia River fall Chinook stocks that support our ocean fisheries, but had to continue to have critically low forecasts for several Puget Sound stocks. The particular combination of stock and age compositions in our forecast this year led to differing levels of stock impact from last year for many of our fisheries in Puget Sound, and required some significant reductions to those fisheries to meet our conservation objectives for Puget Sound stocks. Thanks to the council for your patience this week as we work through all those very difficult issues with inside fisheries in the final days of this meeting. The package in front of you does include a trade of Chinook and coho between the commercial, troll, and recreational fisheries. The trade does have the support of the Washington Salmon Advisory Subpanel representatives, as it does enable both sectors to better meet their fishery management objectives. The trade is also consistent with the requirements of the Council's Salmon Fishery Management Plan. The closure date for fisheries north of Ledbetter Point is obviously an important issue for everyone involved in North of Falcon fisheries, and I appreciate the testimony we've heard this week from the Macaw tribe and the Quinault Treaty Area tribes, as well as the research results presented from 2024 by the Macaw tribe. I was hopeful as we moved through the week that we would at least find a compromise closure date somewhere between the middle and end of September. I am encouraged that there appears to be better coordination developing on the collection of additional data that should address concerns with the late September portion of the fishery, and WDFW looks forward to being involved in that. This motion, with its earlier closure date, is not a statement about whether late September fisheries have some unacceptable or differential level of impact on coastal Washington coho stocks, and I am supportive of fisheries continuing through all of September. In case there are any questions later about differences in impact levels from the STT report today, there will be small changes to impact estimates for non-treaty fisheries with these earlier closure dates that are not reflected in the current modeling, including increased impact to some coastal coho stocks, but none so large that they will affect meeting conservation objectives. There is one small regulatory change in this motion that does not affect modeling of fisheries, a regulation that has been used in the past when one sub-area is open for salmon retention, but the adjacent area is not. This is the case for the Columbia River and Westport sub-areas before June 25th this year, so this change will restrict salmon possession in the Columbia River sub-area until it opens for salmon on June 25th. This package meets all of our domestic and international conservation objectives for all of our stocks. It meets all other requirements of the Council FMP, and I'm pleased we were able to navigate all of the issues this week and have it before us for consideration today. And while I still have the floor, I also want to thank Robin Elke. She's been extremely helpful to me during her time here with the council, and was extremely helpful to me back when she was working for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I worked on Columbia River stuff with her for a while, and always appreciated your willingness and eagerness to help, Robin. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the motion? Seeing no questions, discussion on the motion? There's no discussion. I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Kyle. Next in the alphabet, John North.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Yes, Oregon does have a motion shown on the screen. I move the Council adopt for submission to the U.S. Secretary of Commerce the non-Indian commercial and recreational salmon management measures for the area from Cape Falcon, Oregon to the Oregon-California border as described in Agenda Item D8A Supplemental SDT Report 1 dated April 15, 2025, including all season descriptions, minimum sizes, and requirements, definitions, restrictions, and exceptions.
Thank you, John. I followed along. That language on the screen before us looks accurate and complete. Is that correct?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Krista Svensson. Please speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I do have some thoughts to share. It's more content than usual for me, but I feel it's important, so please bear with me. Sorry. This year's ocean salmon season setting process has been another tough one, requiring difficult decisions. With the depressed forecast for both Klamath and Sacramento Falls Chinook, it forces one to consider the fine balance of providing opportunity to fish with the risk posed to the resource. As I said last year, I recognize the challenges we're facing with our salmon stocks up and down the coast, and I sure hope we can turn things around. The recent return of salmon to the Upper Klamath Basin following the 4 dam removal project leaves me optimistic. I do acknowledge the painful decision made to close all troll opportunity in California for the 3rd consecutive year, and the same goes for the heavily impacted California wreck fishery. I truly do feel for the huge economic impact these closures and restrictions have on the California communities. But at the same time, I've been moved by the conversations and testimony I've heard from the Oregon troll fleet of the shared pain felt from these constraining conditions since their fishery has been in disaster relief status for 7 of the last 9 years. And as a result of that, the Oregon fleet has been weakened over time and boats have been mothballed. So throughout this week, not only has the conservation of California Falls Chinook stocks been on my mind, but so has the preservation of our fleet, our coastal communities, and the legacy of salmon fisheries to our state. As we began this season planning process, I was reminded of the responsibilities trollers hold, which is to provide an opportunity for the non-fishing public to experience and enjoy eating fresh wild salmon. And as more and more of our fleet is lost, so is the future opportunity to provide salmon to our communities. So the unfortunate reality of this preseason process to not only preserve our salmon runs, but also provide meaningful fishing opportunity is, in Oregon, if possible, has been weighing on me. So this year, the management criteria indicates there are some SAC and Klamath Falls Chinook available for harvest. In working with our advisors and incorporating feedback from the public, Oregon has developed troll and sport salmon fisheries that will provide some opportunity to access healthier local salmon stocks while remaining within the overall management guidelines, ESA constraints, and recent harvest shares for both of those stocks. So in designing this year's fisheries, our overall goal was to leverage the best fisheries possible while limiting impacts to constraining stocks. And to minimize impacts to Klamath River, Falls Chinook, and the wreck fishery, we limited the season length, reduced the Chinook bag limit beginning in June, maintained our 24-inch minimum size, and we limited Chinook retention season in the KMZ. And on the troll side, we restricted fishing in the KMZ for 2 weeks, two weeks in April, and progressively moved the fishery to the northern half of the state for June and July with no fishing in August. So collectively, the modeled impact for Klamath River Fall Chinook for Oregon South Falcon fisheries is 390 fish, or less than 0.5% of the forecasted ocean abundance. So obviously there's always some risk in setting and managing fisheries because of the variability and uncertainty, but to help put things in perspective, last year 163 troll vessels landed a little over 18,000 Chinook in a 130-day season in Oregon with an average catch of less than 10 Chinook per boat day. And in the 2-week April KMZ fishery, which is the same one proposed this year, there was less than 10 Chinook landed. And although recent harvest rates for Sacramento and, also recent harvest rates for Sacramento and Klamath Falls Chinook in the Oregon troll fishery have pretty consistently been less than modeled, averaging 35% of preseason expectations for Sacramento and 84% for Klamath during 18 through 22. So overall, the proposed Oregon South of Falcon fisheries are projected to provide a harvest of nearly 100,000, mostly coho, but also Chinook salmon, with less than 7% being Sacramento Falls Chinook. So in a tough year like this, leveraging these impacts will provide a meaningful recreational opportunity and provide public access to fresh ocean salmon via commercial harvest. So in closing, I want to thank the public that participated in this process and recognize the great work of the Salmon technical team, council staff, and my Oregon coworkers for their assistance over the last several months. I especially appreciate the work of the SAS for their dedication to the process and the time that they devote, and want to acknowledge the cooperation I observed between the Oregon SAS members to resolve some issues. I also want to congratulate Robin on her upcoming retirement. We spent a lot of time together years ago managing Columbia River fisheries, and it's well deserved. And finally, I just wanted to voice my appreciation and words to the tribes and co-managers for their words of wisdom that they always offer. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions for clarification on the motion? No questions. Discussion on the motion? Marcy Remco.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Consistent with past votes in March on this topic, I will be voting no on the Oregon motion. After a week of taking inventory of needs, risks, costs, benefits, and trade-offs, California is disappointed that Oregon chose to ignore the risks posed by unrestricted summer fishing seasons in northern and central Oregon without quotas or harvest limits. It is great to see that Oregon can offer a good deal of opportunity this year on healthy stocks. But in a year when forecasts of California target stocks that also support Oregon's fisheries are so low, and consequently the harvest models project very low impacts, capping fishery performance to prevent runaway fisheries would seem an easy, risk-averse choice. The potential for increased effort in these Oregon fisheries is another consideration, given that vessels who would have no fishing opportunity in California for a third year might be motivated to head north. So with that, I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? And let me clarify, I believe I heard no votes from, I'll go in order, Rebecca Lent, Marcy Remco, Mark Gorelnik, Corey Ridings. Was there anyone else? No, so you have those, Executive Director Burton. So the motion passes with 4 no votes. Okay, now we'll move on further south. Marcy Remco.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I move the Council adopt for submission to the U.S. Secretary of Commerce the 2025 non-Indian commercial and recreational salmon management measures for the area from the Oregon-California border to the U.S.-Mexico border as presented in Agenda Item D8A, Supplemental STT Report 1, dated April 15th, 2025, including all season descriptions, minimum sizes, requirements, definitions, restrictions, and exceptions.
Thank you. Language on the screen appears accurate and complete. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Mark Gorelnik. Please speak to your motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Just want to say the SAS put their all into designing a fishery this year out of nothing but scraps. I want to commend the California SAS's creative thinking and their considerations for designing season alternatives with so many competing interests and needs. Conservation, opportunity, enforcement, monitoring among them. The commercial SAS members, George and his group explored every opportunity and turned over every stone to look for ways to find meaningful opportunity this year. And ultimately, a commercial season didn't work out for 2025. But there is hope that sitting on the sidelines for one more year will improve the chances for more meaningful opportunity in 2026. If the autocorrelation factor hadn't had such a substantial impact on the SAC fall forecast, the discussion this year may have been different. That said, the 2024 jack counts are a positive sign, and there's even more optimism in some of the preliminary information shared this past week on the 2025 returns of Sacramento Spring Run. I want to shout out to our sports SAS representatives who showed extreme flexibility working with us to develop the small season opportunities that we will move forward with. Thank you for your willingness as we learn how to monitor very short period fisheries. We appreciate their selection of dates and their recognition that we need time between openers to stop and count and tally our best estimates of catch against our newly established harvest guidelines for recreational fisheries. The handful of days that are planned for the sport fishery this year were designed with an immense amount of caution. We've come in well under the projections of catch and the fishery-related impacts to Klamath, Sacramento, and endangered species stocks. Also want to acknowledge the proactive thinking in designing sports season this year in the fall with a new zone, or at least a zone we haven't used as a zone before, between Point Reyes and Point San Pedro. Point Sur during the fall fisheries this year, with hopes of allowing access to McCollum stocks that we expect will be abundant this fall. While the season adoption day always comes with a feeling of accomplishment, there is work ahead as we approach June and our first opener. Implementing in-season management and monitoring two-day seasons is completely new to the Ocean Salmon Project and will require significant planning over the next few months to ensure there's adequate catch monitoring and coated wire tag collection activities in all of our California ports at the same time. So we do appreciate the offers we've heard over the week from the recreational industry leaders to help us with the outreach efforts, and we will certainly be in touch on those needs over the coming days. While the opportunities are very limited in 2025, they are a step forward from the total closures that we've experienced in 2023 and 2024. With that said, we're very confident that the multiple layers of management and precaution will result in only the most minimal of fishery impacts, allowing both our target and weak stocks the best chances to increase their abundance levels if the favorable environmental conditions hold. I'd like to turn to some discussion over the week we've had with the STT on the package and the need for perhaps some better transparency in what some of the numbers mean and what they represent. And I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate the exchanges we've had over the week with Dr. O'Farrell on the questions the council's raised about Klamath River adults, adult spawners, the spawner reduction rate, and the river fishery rollover that's used to correctly calculate the number of fish available for tribal harvest under 50-50 sharing. I understand the responses that we received through the number of iterations in the package, and I understand there aren't any quick answers right now, but would just flag a need for better clarity and transparency in the package. Interested parties are now scouring the fine print in the documents and are asking very reasonable questions about the meaning of the numbers and how they relate to the ocean abundance forecast. Table A3 of the STT report shows the projected age 4 ocean harvest rate, but the age 4 constraint for coastal Chinook wasn't limiting this year. So perhaps it would be more beneficial to show the projected harvest rate on all Klamath adults instead of or in addition to the age 4 ocean harvest rate. I appreciate the willingness of the STT to give these issues regarding the numbers in the package some thought over summer. And if that thinking suggests that a methods review is warranted on either the Klamath Ocean Harvest Model and or the Klamath Forecast in order to bring better resolution, I'd encourage the STT to consider adding an item to the final methods review list that we will take up in September. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Any questions for clarification on the motion? Seeing no questions, discussion on the motion. Corey Ridings.
Thank you, Vice. Thank you, Ms. Uremko, for this motion. I will be voting no on this motion, and I wanted to share some of those reasons here. Some of our predicted returns on the SAC are even lower than last year, yet we had higher guidance from NMFS for reasons that remain unclear. When that guidance came out in March, there were a lot of questions about why that had changed and what direction that was coming from. And to date, I have not gotten a clear answer around that. The logic behind this year and last year's recommendation, they don't make sense to me. We used a lower target in response to an even lower prediction remains a mystery and a major concern. I want to start right now and express my deep appreciation of the measures that CDF&W have taken and have offered to take as part of this deliberation to do in-season monitoring and quota-based management. That is new. Those are potentially extremely valuable tools, especially when we are at lower levels of abundance. And I am very grateful to everyone in the department who took the time and energy and resources to think those things out and bring those tools to the table. Part of that was thinking about a data plan. You know, what could those tools get us? What data, what information could a small, limited fishery provide us? We've heard some discussion about that. I haven't, however, seen a data plan or a methodology about how that is going to be executed, have concerns about limited resource and the ability to effectively execute that plan in a way that means we would be guaranteed to get meaningful data moving forward. The Yurok and Hoopa tribes depend on salmon. While this package provides its treaty-obligated 50-50 share of available fish, It does not address the overarching fact that the federal government, across its agencies that go beyond NMFS and NOAA, continues to not meet their obligations. 50-50 of very little is even less. We just heard about minimal needs from the STT, which were not even addressed, but that is not even really what I think we should be doing here. We should be focusing on meeting needs. Regarding the recreational opportunities that Ms. Yaremko has proposed here, it is my opinion that I do not think having a 2-day opener will keep us within our limits. The design of the season put forward by CDF&W, with a lot of help from the SAS, is thoughtful and seeks to address the potential to overfish. But I have long-standing concerns that we will go through our limits in a single 2-day season. I've joked that every bloke and her dog will want to fish for salmon, myself included. I think that remains true. We have a lot of folks in California who want to go fish, who are going to be there that day one. I'm probably going to be one of them. I have a lot of concerns that we are not in a place to be able to manage that. We have heard enforcement concerns about what that looks like and the ability to enforce even a 2-day season. There are data and monitoring concerns about how you collect and ensure that that data is useful and rigorous and valid. We heard this week that there are safety concerns for the people who will be fishing. I'm not here to tell people what they can and can't personally risk, but it matters if we set people up for safety or not, and that is National Standard 10 demands that of us. We've heard throughout this process from some folks from ports and counties. I would say I really appreciate them coming and providing that perspective. I think it's helpful and it's nice to hear sort of what impacts and what fishing means from their perspective. It made me think about what would this, even a small season, mean for these ports and these communities. And I suspect that it probably would help them. I maintain one weekend at the potential costs that may be paid later down the road in loss of fishing isn't worth the risk. The ocean harvest models, while the good science is developed and run by talented and devoted scientists, have a lot of uncertainty in them. We know that their accuracy is poor and continue to trend towards overestimation, which gives the council and decision makers like us very low confidence. Fundamentally, I feel like we are at the margins and we are grasping for straws. Fundamentally, the situation is fewer fish than last year when this council decided to not have a season. So I've been thinking, what's the difference? Seems like we have politics, we have desperation, we have sadness, we have frustration. And a lot of that is with folks and entities outside of this council, which is to say with NMFS and for the state of California for not managing the water necessary for abundant and healthy salmon. Those are not reasons, though, to put recovery and future fishing and risk putting Sac Fall into an overfish situation, which we were told we missed by a very small margin last year at risk. There remains concerns about spring and winter run as well. Because of the rolling average, the risk of hitting an overfish declaration on Sac Fall is slightly lower this year on paper, but in principle, saving now while we're at the bottom for the future of fishing, that remains. Regarding the Klamath, we have a lot of hope for the future. I know I certainly do with the dams that have come down, but those benefits have not materialized yet, and we don't know when they will. We cannot fully change the future for salmon until things are done better on land. And I thank and urge this council to do everything we can to weigh in on those issues whenever we can. However, it doesn't change our responsibility and authorities here today. And fundamentally, this council is just an advisory body to the National Marine Fisheries Service. And I urge them, they must be stronger when working with their state and federal partners to stand up for salmon. Lastly, one issue I've been considering has been fairness. We are asked to consider this under the national standards as well.
while thinking on that, I came to the conclusion that I cannot compliment the fishermen and industry folks enough at what great lengths they've gone to support each other at this meeting and try to provide fishing opportunity across the board. I'm still struggling with some concerns around fairness, however. Asking the commercial fleet to stay tied up while we have recreational is very difficult, even if it's a small opportunity. Again, I want to thank so many people who have been at this meeting around the table and informing this meeting, especially Mr. North and Ms. Yaremko, the SAS, the STT, and everyone who was here providing advice on how to move forward with this. I feel very fortunate to be receiving the information, the wisdom, the knowledge from people who put into this, a lot of them on their own time and their own dime, to try to make these decisions as best we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Corey. Further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Motion passes with one no vote. I believe the executive director has that recorded. Thank you. And David Sones?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I do have a motion. We can get that up. Yeah, I believe right at the end there where it says coho quota that it should be if are taken, I believe is what that should say, if the quotas are taken. Correct. Thank you. I move to adopt the treaty troll fisheries management measures for submission to the U.S. Secretary of Commerce for the area north of Cape Falcon as shown in Agenda Item D8A, Supplemental STT Report 1, Table 3, April 15th, 2025, and the following edit. July 1 through the earlier of the date in September, to be established in tribal regulations, or 22,500 Chinook quota or the 37,500 coho quota are taken.
Thanks, Dave. Before I look for a second, I just want to make sure the wording, I think earlier you said something about the word if. Do we need that for clarity and between the or and the 22,500? And I don't want to change your motion, but I just want to make sure it's clear.
It looks clear, yeah. Regulations or the 22,500 Chinook quota or the 37,500. I think, yeah, that looks right.
Okay, thank you. And I just think we got to the point that the language on the screen is accurate and complete. So yes. Is there a second to it? Seconded by Kyle Addix. Please speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. This week has been probably one of the most difficult ones I believe we've had from the inside all the way out. It's been very contentious and people have worked through the issues. It's been very difficult. And we got to this point with the treaty ocean troll, agreeing on the numbers and meeting our conservation and management obligations. We have the September date is open. Tribal regulations will fill that out also, and I think that needs to be addressed in the report where it says again. Oh yes, where the The quotas include catches by the Kalamakau, Washington State, May 1 through the earlier of September, it should say. So I think we'll get that in there through this motion. It has the 15th from the older stuff in there. But like I said, it's been a very difficult struggle to get to this point and get to an area where we can actually have a vote and not have to abstain. For myself, which I would if we had two different closing dates, then we have two different versions of what the tribes want, and by agreement, when we have those situations, I would abstain. But in this case, because we just have September outlaid to the end of the management period that is in the FMP, that I would be able to vote on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for clarification on the motion? Seeing no questions, discussion on the motion. Kyle Addix.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'll just reiterate what I said during speaking to my motion, that although I altered the closure dates for the non-treaty fisheries north of Cape Falcon, I support ending through the fishing through the end of September and intend to support this motion.
Thank you. Sharon Kiefer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually would like to ask a question of NIMPS. I'm assuming because we do have the overlay already of the FMP that allows through end of September, that allowing then a closure date that is established in the tribal regulations still meets the needs for clarity and transparency in the motion that is submitted to Secretary of Commerce.
Susan Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Ms. Key, for the questions. Yes, it does. It puts back to the tribes what is in their right to do in terms of controlling their fisheries. The September fisheries are managed as a block. All of the impacts are accounted for. Both tribes yesterday, the testimony that we've heard over the last several days, have been common in that they have both included fishing through September. The flavor of that fishing, if you will, it varies. So some, in one case, the proposal would have that in late September be the test fishery. In the other case, it would be potentially an extension of commercial fishing. All of those impacts are taken into account, and in doing that, all of the conservation objectives are met. The Magnuson-Stevens requirements are met, and the ESA requirements are met. And so we would have no objection.
Thank you for that clarity to both of you.
All right, thank you. Further discussion? Questions on the motion? Seeing no questions, discussion on the motion? Susan Bishop.
Not any real discussion, only my gratitude to all the work that's gone into this. This has not been an easy decision. There's been a huge amount of conversation in the background. I know how difficult it was for the tribes to come to the council and provide their different viewpoints. And I want to extend my appreciation to all of the tribal leadership and the tribal staff and technical people, and in addition to the agencies around them that helped facilitate this. It helped me understand the circumstances better. So I just wanted to present our appreciation.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing no discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, David. So there are a couple of wrap-up things we need to take care of. Before, I just want to make sure we've completed this part of the final action. Not seeing any hands there. Like the others, I want to express my gratitude to everybody who's worked on this through a difficult 2 months, I guess. I think we started off in March. I'm not sure who said it, whether it was me or somebody else, but because of the nature of the poor salmon returns, the staffing, and everything that was our support we had, that we asked for some patience, understanding, and flexibility, and as we work through this, and everybody has demonstrated that. It's very difficult, and I guess I just hope everybody shares my optimism that the reason we keep doing this through these hard times is we want to be at this table when we can pass some robust fisheries up and down the coast for the tribal and non-tribal needs out there and in river also. So just stick with it and keep doing good work. And with that, as I said, there's 2 wrap-up reports. We have a salmon technical team and a salmon advisory subpanel report. I think Dr. O'Farrell and Ryan Johnson, can you come up and I'll let the chairs start off and figure out how you want to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. We conferred, and I'm going first. With your permission, I'd like to call the STT up to the podium.
Please.
Here on the STT, we couldn't let this meeting go by without giving some recognition to Robin. It might embarrass her a little bit, but it's well deserved. She's been an incredible asset to the STT, an incredible person to work with. And we've written down a few things that we wanted to say to her as she leaves here.
All right, so we would like to say that Robin has just been a steady force in the salmon world in this process. She's led with strength, with clarity, with compassion, whether she's guiding us through complex decisions or helping us stay grounded during more chaotic moments. She's always showed up with patience, wisdom, and a whole lot of heart, while she's also being straight up and direct with all of us.
Robin has made the STT feel like family. Despite rapid turnover and changing faces during her time as Salmon Staff Officer, and no matter how people came and went, and she kept us well connected.
Yeah, I don't really want to read anything. We've been working on this for the last couple of days, but I would just say that Robin is just a force of nature and really can wrangle a group like the STT and the SAS, for that matter, in a way like I've never seen before, but all the while being a complete facilitator for the work that we do, trying to make our conditions while we work acceptable and, conducive of productivity. And she's just a very generous person who really is, I don't know what else to say. I'm really going to miss you, Robin, but it's been a really fun time with you on the STT.
All right, I'll pick up on what we did prepare. Despite all the turnover, Robin has carried through and instilled in the new generation the values of the STT, a strong commitment to the process, the science, the resource, the industry, and to each other. Trust in your team, but equally importantly, trust in yourself. Being part of the STT comes with an immense weight of responsibility, often agonizing decisions, sleep deprivation, and a massive workload. And yet, being part of the STT is often the most rewarding part of a team member's career, thanks to the people here and the values we hold. It's your team members and strong values like these that allow one another to persevere and overcome. And whiskey helps a little too.
She has helped us navigate more challenges than we can count. And honestly, it wasn't just the big decisions or tough calls. It's the little things too. The late night problem solving, the spreadsheet magic, and the quick check-ins to make sure that we're all doing okay. All of that made a real difference in how we worked together and got things done.
Robin, thank you for everything. You've been a staunch defender of the STT from the beginning, and while we're sad to see you go, we're also so excited for whatever comes next for you.
Robin, here's hoping it involves a well-deserved break. Maybe driving a fancy car into the sunset with Dusty riding shotgun. But don't forget, we all know where you live, and we will be coming by. And to diverge a little bit from what we wrote, sorry, I'm not going to look at you, otherwise I'm going to start crying. Thank you for your mentorship, your support, your guidance, your love, and your wisdom. It's felt within this process and outside, and you're part of an entire legacy of love in salmon management for the West Coast. And we deeply appreciate that.
All right, thank you. And I guess it is an official STT report, so on behalf of the council, we'll upstage the SSE and NIMS and say that's the best scientific and personality information available for this. And Ryan Johnson. And you have some other members with you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. My first SAS meeting, sitting along the wall, Robin was a staff officer. Thank you for your guidance, your input, and your steady hand. You've led the SAS through difficult times. You helped us decide what to say, how to say it, and also many, many times what we should not say. I hope in the future I can explain how important you have been to salmon as a species, to WFNW, and to the council. Thank you. We look forward to Portland and Vancouver meetings.
Yesterday, before the SAS adjourned, a lot of our members had to leave, and we had a little bit discussion going on in the room. And one of our members said, you know, it's not Robin that's leaving or leading the SAS and the STT, but she's led many other work groups that some of the SAS members has been there. And I was happy to hear that she's just as rough on them as she is on us. It was also said is one thing we're going to miss is that look when we do something wrong. She doesn't have to say anything. She just has to have that look. And I told Angela that she needs to take a picture of that just to hold it up so we'll know. The other thing I would like to ask the council to do, if possible at any time, is for the last 4 meetings, we were lucky enough to have both Angela and Robin here. And I know Angela has learned a lot from Robin. Probably not everything, but at least it's a head start, and it made the transition in the SAS a lot easier. This is really emotional for all of us, and that's why some of us aren't here. It's hard to say goodbye. I've heard so many times that the council is a family. When I first joined, I didn't really see that, but as you're here, it's more and more. She's a leader. She's an awesome lady, and I wish you the best. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else was going to talk because, like it said, it's emotional, and we love you.
Look at her.
Well, I'm the new kid on the block. I haven't known Robin that long, but I took over for Rich Heap, and from the very beginning, to witness the love and the family that Robin and Rich shared, and what you were able to bring together. It doesn't take someone long to recognize when they're in the presence of greatness, and I wish you the best going forward.
All right. Thank you all for that. Last report. I think Executive Burden might have something to say here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. And Robin, we do have the benefit of having you on the staff for a few more days, but wanted to give everyone here some of the insights that we as staff have into Robin, and nothing too embarrassing. We'll save that for our more private conversations in the office, but I do want to let you in on a few things. So some of the staff have sent me some of the things that they appreciate about Robin and some of the observations they have. So here's one. Robin has an incredible ability for guiding with clarity and purpose, always ensuring that respect and collaboration remain at the forefront. Her attention to detail, organization, and skill in navigating complex discussions and bringing folks to productive outcomes has strengthened the Council's work in ways that often go unnoticed but have benefited the Council process and the salmon world. Another comment. Every Monday we have an all-staff meeting. Robin sits in the same seat every Monday morning. Every once in a while we like to tease her, and someone, his name might be Kerry Griffin, I think he tends to do this most often. He'll sit in Robin's seat, and we sit there and watch Robin just squirm. She also has a way, and I think you all will know exactly what I mean here, she has a way of calling out BS and doing it with a way that makes you smile. She has a thing for fighter jets. If you've been in our office or you've been in a Zoom call with us, you've heard the fighter jets going over, and every time they fly over the office, she gets a huge smile on her face. There are a lot of things that are to be admired about Robin. One thing that comes to the surface is the way she blends the highest professional standards, including her incredible smarts and skills with a super cool and fun approach to life. Robin has a crafty side. She loves fabric. She loves creating amazing quilts. Robin has a no-nonsense attitude. She always is aware and caring of others around her. She speaks up for others. She ensures people aren't forgotten when in tough times, such as heavy workloads, missed opportunities, and so forth. Robin is deadpan funny. When the F-15s fly over our office, she says, "There go my boyfriends." And I'll stop there and I'll just say thank you, Robin, for all that you've brought to us.
All right.
You probably
Thanks.
want me to say something, but I can't. But you all
right.
know I love you very much.
In November we'll get a chance to give you more accolades, and you can say something then. So with that, Angela, anything else here?
Well, Mr. Vice Chair, I really don't want to wrap up this agenda item because it is my last one with Robin, and it has been an incredible year with her. So, but you have passed 4 motions, and they will get wrapped into the STT's pre-3, and your work here is complete.
All right. And since you don't want to wrap it up, Rahman, can we wrap this up?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. That completes our agenda item under Salmon agenda item D3. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for their work, and I'll pass the gavel back to our chair.
Okay. Wow. Great work, everyone, and thank you, Robin. Yes. All right. I think we're almost done. I think somebody may have something to say here. Maybe Danny Evanson?
I guess I'm the designee. I move. I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Please.
That's all right with you.
Please.
Okay. I move that we adjourn the 281st session of the Pacific Fishery Management Council, April 2025.
All right, looking for a second. Second by Mark Grelnick. Thank you. And all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Abstentions?